Good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, June 17th. The time is 9 a.m., and the Board of Ada County Commissioners are in session for our budget deliberations. And we really wanted to let everyone know we appreciated all of their presentations and the hard work that went into those, and we really enjoyed hearing those, and we look forward to moving forward. And we have Phil McGrain here from the clerk's office, our clerk, to walk us through this process, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, good morning.
By the way, we have all three commissioners with us in the room today.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity. I apologize in advance for my kind of scratchy voice. I was riding roller coasters all weekend, and so I'm still recovering. This week is set aside for budget deliberations. As you already referenced, earlier this month we had presentations from all of the county offices and departments giving a highlight of their accomplishments over the last year, as well as discussing what their budgetary requests are, specifically looking at their supplemental requests, any capital investment program requests, or extraordinary operating requests, so that we could go through and that you'd have an opportunity to ask questions and hopefully get many of the answers in allowing you to be able to make a decision. One of the questions that I've received for this period, and I'm sure for anybody from the public who's streaming online, is we have time reserved for this week to help you make decisions. At the end of this, our goal is to arrive at a balanced budget. That's a mutual goal between our office. I'm tasked with presenting you ultimately a balanced budget by statute. Our process here in Ada County is to allow you to get to weigh in that process so that when we do that, we're all on the same page, right? And so that's what this is. If you look at this week, it is much more a dialogue among and between our office and you to get to that point, rather than having any set method that we're going through. So we may very well find that there's a lot of consensus on many of the items, and therefore it's easy to go through there. There's also other items where there may not be a consensus, and as a result, it may take more time. One of the things I mentioned to you, Madam Chair, is as we go through this, we do have a lot of time allotted. We may revisit many of the topics more than once. In the event there are questions that can't be answered by one of you or us in the process, we may reach out to one of the offices or departments. We have staff from our office that can reach out while we're still deliberating so we can move to a different item rather than slow the process down. At the end of the day, we only have a week, and you guys have Board of Equalization coming up very quickly. And so the calendar is tight in the month of June, and I think you guys already know that. So this is a largely more informal process. That said, we have a structure to kind of walk you through to help you make decisions. One of the unique things that we're doing this year, it was based on your recommendation, specifically Commissioner Lasciando. Here at 10 o'clock this morning, we will open the floor for public testimony to give the public 3 minutes to present their case on any issues that they want to be heard about. Hopefully that will inform your process as we go along. I think it's worthy just to remind you that we are streaming, as we have been, just to make sure this is as open as we can be during these deliberative processes. I anticipate, and we've seen in the past, we may not need the entire week. So we may, if you guys are all in sync, we may wrap up this afternoon. So good luck. Or we may come back, and if we need to, at some point, if we get to a loggerhead and we're not being productive, we can recess and come back the next day, giving everyone a chance to kind of digest what happened and to contemplate what they need to do. Just because we have this time set out doesn't mean that we always have to use all of it, because there's no point in us just sitting here if we're not making headway in terms of getting to a balanced budget. So I just kind of want to set the tone for what this is. This is a dialogue. I've got Kathleen and Anthony here with me. We're actually all working off the same spreadsheets, kind of documenting things. We're keeping track of all the decisions you make. You will notice during this, we may discuss, and one of you may give me instructions on what to do with an item or make a recommendation. I will always be looking for at least one other commissioner to at least nod in the affirmative or make some affirmative statement before we move forward. I think you guys are familiar with that, but we're going to do that on steroids through this process. We'll kind of be walking through. So that's kind of setting the ground rules. This is meant to be a dialogue, so please take advantage of our office and trying to assist you in getting there. Hopefully it'll make sense as we go through. Madam Chair, as we discussed, what we're going to do this morning, I'll go back and just kind of give you an overview where we are, some of the assumptions that are built in as we move forward, and then we'll start with some of the requests from the self-supported funds. Those are usually easier to deliberate on because they already had to submit a balanced budget to even get to this point. That's different than the property tax funded funds. And so we'll work through that stuff largely before the public testimony begins at 10. We may take a short recess before the public testimony just so we can get that teed up. We'll do that, and then once we're done receiving testimony, we'll come back, and that'll really begin the full deliberative process on kind of the countywide budget. Everybody good kind of with that overview of the ground rules? All right, please ask questions along the way. All right, just to, as you'd requested, to give you an overview of where we stand, you can see on the screen, this is the same shot that we showed you guys at the beginning of the presentations. The $279 million, or actually the 273,585, 207, I'm going to screw this up, $270 is what was submitted. This is the budget request from all the countywide, without any of the capital investment program or extraordinary operating expenses, as well as not any increase in terms of employee wages. So this does have built in the personnel requests and the supplemental requests. You can actually see here, it shows that we have a surplus at the moment. That's because we have some fund balance that we've already intended to use for one-time capital projects. Those one-time capital projects that are making up that fund balance usage are predominantly in the self-supported funds, but there is about $4 million in the property tax funds, and it's just things that we know that we have money set aside that we need to use for these projects, and they're appropriate projects for using savings for. So that's how we end up at this point. As we've gone over before, you can kind of see the breakdown in terms of the $113 million in terms of funding coming from departmental revenue. We have additional departmental revenue, so that's increases in departmental revenue of a little over $5 million. Obviously, our number one funding source, the funding source we'll be discussing today, is property taxes. Built into this is $133 million in property taxes. If we add the 3%, the 3% accounts for $4 million. That is a decision point we'll be making later today. Same thing with the new construction roll. It's almost $5.5 million in terms of new construction roll. That is another decision item. And then the fund balance I mentioned, that $17 million, that's the fund balance that we're using and across a variety of funds. So don't, it's coming in some cases from funding sources that are just self-supported funds. Or, as we discussed before, like one of the items is we do intentionally use fund balance in some instances. So, for example, funding the indigent services budget this year, we're using some fund balance just to keep the fund balance at a healthy amount because it's kind of been escalating over time. And then in terms of the expenditure side, you can see the county is always very heavily built on personnel. And we have $168 million in personnel requests. Then to support those people, we have almost $82 million in operating expenses, and then one-time capital. And as I mentioned, that one-time capital, you notice the orange, it's largely what is supported by that use of fund balance. We always, one of the discussions that we've talked about in the past, and you can see throughout this, we always focus on making sure we're using one-time money, so our savings for one-time expenses, and ongoing money for ongoing expenses. In terms of that overview, are there any questions at this point before I shift gears really to the deliberative piece? Good?
Questions? No?
Okay.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. All right, here's where we're going to spend the rest of the week. This is our expenditure tracking tool. You'd seen previously the version that we were using in Tableau. We've modified this into Excel to try and make this as easy to follow for everybody, and so that we can track decisions in real time. You can notice the bars at the top. So we have a bar for expenses and we have a bar for revenue. That's where we get those $204 million or the $205 million that you see respectively at the top. We'll be monitoring those at the end of the day. Our goal is to be balanced. The way we balance those, so those two bars will not be lined up at the end. It'll just be a reflection of where we are in terms of those respective funding sources. Where we make up the difference is in that ball that is right below it, where it says revenue exceeds expenses by. That's our use of fund balance. So in order to balance the budget, we will need to use fund balance, or we'll have an excess revenue by so much, depending on which side of the ball. Right now, it's actually showing revenue in excess of $1.2 million. We have to figure out a default place to begin this, right? So this isn't no preordained decisions here. But I'll kind of walk you through how we start where we're looking at in terms of the budget, just the assumptions that are built in. One of the things we've kind of got a hybrid here. We could easily strip it down and just assume no on all of the decisions. But based on our experience, what will just happen is we'll end up loading them all back in and then working down. It's usually easier to cut than it is to add, just because you kind of know what your target is and where you're working to. That's where this is kind of built off of. Our goal here is, if I highlight over, is this green area. This is where our office sees an appropriate use of fund balance. Based on where our fund balances currently sit, that's after taking into consideration all the reserves that we have, whether that's a reservation for cash basis or for reservations for things that have already been committed. We've taken all those things into account, so we're not discussing those items. We're now saying we have fund balance above and beyond that we could use for some projects to help balance this budget. And we've discussed that already in the past. We're comfortable at the peak of using up to $7.75 million in fund balance. That's where you'll see the very end of this green dot before it goes into the yellow. I'll be pushing you throughout this process to get us into that green. You'll note the dot can move either directions. If we're in the position we're in right now, where the dot is on the right-hand side of the green area, that really suggests largely that we're taking more taxes than we probably should. Right, we've taking on new taxes, but we don't have new expenses to balance those, right? And so that's why the ball can move either direction. Either we're using too much money or we're taking too much money, one or the other. But our goal at the end is to be in the green area. And as we track that, so we'll be tracking decisions, yes and no's to various requests. You'll actually see these numbers move throughout the entire process, which should help make it, you can track your progress. All right, in terms of the assumptions that are built in, you can see this is our main screen here. Right now, the numbers at the top, let me make one more clarification in terms of where the $204 and $205 million come from. These are the 3% property tax funds. We do have decisions that we'll be making on other funds in these sheets, but they're not affecting that number at the top. Because those are separate, they each independently have to be self-funded. We're tracking those. The challenging area is the ones that are property tax supported, and that's what you're seeing those numbers. That's why it's different and it's less than the $173 million or the $273 million I was just showing you. All right. So in terms of assumptions, as we work through the worksheet, we'll revisit these once we get into that deliberative process. But you'll notice we've built in, based on our prior conversations with you, taking the 3% of property taxes. This is the increase in revenue that we're allowed by statute, is to take that. We also have built in the new construction roll that is here. So both of those are built in. We reference here that this is currently, according to the tax commission, $12.5 million in foregone that's available if you choose that you need to use that to balance the budget. Also, right now, there is nothing built in terms of county-wide employee wages, but you can see the amounts for each percent, whether it's merit or COLA, what that would be. There's also, if for some reason, if you entertain a flat increase for employees, we have the ability to build in to do that. And then also, as I mentioned before, I've built in where we could set aside some money for the master's facility plan. The one thing in this whole budget process that we don't really have cleanly built in is how do you fund the master facility plan? Those are monumental projects, and I don't know that we have any at the moment where there hasn't been a specific request on one item other than those are out there and what they need to be funded. We do have in the CIP process elements, though, that are tied to the master facility plan.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Visser.
Yeah, thank you. Question. Phil, the figure that you have for the new construction roll at $5.5 million. Historically, can you give us an idea of what it's been the last 2 or 3 years, last year, the previous year, et cetera?
I'll defer to Kathleen. It's been slowly going up, but I think this is relatively flat in between last year and this year in terms of where construction, we've seen post-recession that number climbing. It had significantly dropped in the recession, but we're kind of plateauing in terms of what the new construction roll counts for right now. I say it's not an even, but it's close to around what it was previous year.
But no big spike.
No big spike, no. I think new construction, yes, it's very active right now in the county, but also construction has been in recent years very active as well.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Madam
About
Chair.
900, Chair, Commissioners, it's about $900,000 more than it was last year. Last year's new construction roll was 4.5.
About a 20+%
That's pretty good.
increase, yeah.
So the value, the taxable value was $1,992,110. So it's gone up a lot. I mean, the value overall.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen.
And that's a number too, I should think it's referenced. In the past month, we've been working closely with Bob McQuaid in his office to figure out what the total valuation is so we can figure out what the new construction roll will be. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And Phil, just for clarification, we'll have the final numbers in August when everything comes in, including the subsequent rolls?
This is the final new construction roll at this point.
Okay, at this
Yes.
point, okay, so we won't see anything more coming in subsequent?
Well, not for budget purposes.
Okay.
All right, in terms of other assumptions, how we arrive at the numbers that are on the screen right now, the CIP cases, this is all of the CIP requests. Those in red were kind of the higher priorities. Right now, none of the CIP is built into this, so that's actually how we end up with a surplus at the moment, because we have not funded any of the really big stuff. Similarly, the extraordinary operating expenses, we haven't funded any of these, so that's why you see, again, a surplus. As soon as we add a bunch of those, that'll easily shift. What we do have built in, though, is at the moment, all of the personnel requests from all the departments are assumed in at the moment. That's not necessarily driving you to make a decision. It's just to help us get to some place to start. And similarly, all of the supplemental requests are built in right now. But each of these we will go through and make a decision. As we make those decisions, it will adjust these. So we'll actually, as you can already see, the lines we'll go through by department, through the supplementals and through the personnel requests. That'll be one of the places that we start. Once we get into the thick of it, we'll go through there, and it'll kind of drive decisions from there. So just high level, this is where we're starting from. I want to just make sure everyone understands the assumptions that are built in here so that as we make decisions, it makes it easier. But if you any point you get lost, just ask a question. And one of the nice thing is we're tracking here as the decisions go, so you like we can double check one, or we can also always go back at some point in the past. We've needed to go back and revisit specific topics. All right, ready to begin making some decisions?
I think we are.
All right, I'm going to start with the easiest ones of the day. This is a really unique category. You'll notice I didn't even go over it during the assumptions. This is one of those things legal requests us to do during this process. This is the annual appropriations. So these are some contracts that the county currently has where to renew those contracts, we can do it by just a letter to the other party acknowledging that we want to renew these contracts. These are otherwise built into our base operating expenses. There's nothing particularly special about these contracts other than the way that we're renewing the contracts. Per legal, we need you to go through and just say approve or I guess disapprove each of these. I do have some notes from each of the various departments what these actually refer to, but these are kind of ongoing operating things that the various departments have. So for the prosecutor's office, the first one we have is Westlaw. Westlaw is the research tool that they use to do legal research. Are you guys okay with continuing to fund Westlaw?
Approve.
Yes.
In terms,
Make it real fun and start disapproving things early, or?
Not necessarily,
Should we
no.
debate it?
Like I said, you get time back in the rest of your week, the sooner we get to the end.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Visser.
Thank you. Phil, what I don't see on this is that, what the increase is over the prior year. This Westlaw contract, it may be, what, a 4 or 5 year contract, and it stays the same annually. If any one of these do increase significantly, could you flag that for me, please?
And I'm gonna defer here to Heather real quick. These are renewals at the same terms or not?
They're either renewals at the exact same price as last year or attached to the contract, there's a what
Increase.
predicted increase will be.
Based on these, what these are, because these are the annual appropriations, so these are contracts that we've already negotiated into, and so it's not, unlike other budget requests where something may come in at a new increase, this is either at the same terms or it's a predefined schedule that we had already agreed to previously that there will be an increase of X% or X amount annually. So these are contracts that have already been vetted. That's why we can do this by letter. We're not negotiating significant terms in these annual appropriations.
Yeah. So those numbers are static across the board.
I believe these are the numbers that are set for the next fiscal year based on those contracts.
Good enough, thank you.
Okay, so the Markham Group, this is a vendor that provides managed services for our SharePoint, the ACES intranet site that we use for our IT. You guys okay with this?
Yes.
Okay. The ISEC7, this is a manager, this is the mobile device manager software, MDM, that IT uses to help manage mobile devices.
Yes.
Approve, yes.
Okay, and then in emergency communications, we can go through, you can see the 911 center's AV system maintenance. Yes, okay.
Yes.
I know these are not that interesting. Relative to what we're gonna get into. Microwave equipment maintenance, I'm pretty sure this is not the break room, but
Right,
Yes.
yes. Yes.
Motorola, the life cycle sustainment services.
Yes.
Motorola Prime and the radio site maintenance.
Yes.
Yes.
Microwave maintenance.
Yes.
Yes.
Want mine fixed for that.
And emergency services and preventive maintenance of the UPS, of the power systems.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you for entertaining us through that portion of the process.
of course. Happy to be of entertainment.
All right, we're gonna, as I mentioned before we get towards public testimony, you'll notice the gray line here. The gray line delineates between, below the gray line are the property tax supported funds. The ones above are either, they're self-supported funds. Let me rephrase that. So part of the ones below the green line are the 3% cap funds. The ones below are the self-supported funds. So now this is getting into the substance. These departments submitted their budgets as balanced, right? So the first request we have is from EMS, the new cardiac monitors for $623,000. Yeah, this is a good point. I can see you, Madam Chair. If you want to refer back to your notes that you took along the way, this is a good point to start doing that. So on that first request, what say you? Okay. A yes from Commissioner Laciano?
Commissioner Visser?
Yes.
Yeah. What was that laugh for, Phil?
Oh, my computer's showing my notifications on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hey there.
Interesting.
Oh, there you go. That is true transparency.
So is the color of your skin right
Yeah, exactly. At least I don't have anything to hide. All right, so Commissioner Longiano indicated
both
yes?
said yes.
Yes, okay. Sorry, I got distracted. All right, shifting gears, public health. This is, was discussed during the presentation, right? This is that You are a voting member, but only a voting member. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys okay with this? Yep. And then for pest, the GIS database development with the weed, pest, and mosquito.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. See, that was relatively painless. All right, I'm going to do the same, but we're going to look at the personnel for those same ones. Okay, it's not necessarily fund. This is, again, same type of funds, but just based on the request. So actually starting with new positions for solid waste. So this is landfill. You can kind of see, we'll go through each one we need to approve. So the first one is an administrative assistant that's being requested by solid waste. It's full-time. I can walk you through, but you guys can see all the information on the screen, so.
So we're looking at administrative assistant, right?
Yes, yeah, we're gonna go through them in order as they appear. We'll go by department in order on the screen. So this is solid waste if you're looking through your notes.
Hold on. We have big binders.
We got time.
Big binders.
Thanks, Kurt. Madam Chair, if I'm to recall, I believe we have been down several positions in this department and have actually been utilizing temps
Temps, that's right, yeah.
to backfill, which is more expensive and less effective at the end of the day. So I'm inclined to support all of solid waste management's requests.
That's what I show as well, that it's replacing the more expensive temps.
And I agree.
Okay, and so you just go through
Just go through, yeah.
all of them?
Yeah.
Okay. Easy
Yeah,
enough.
we've already reviewed them.
Oh man, where's my tricky tool?
So Phil, I am doing this on my own Excel sheet so you and I can compare notes
Sounds
at
great.
the end of the day.
Okay. With solid waste complete, next up, we're gonna do the next two together because effectively they're one. You'll notice we have some asterisks off to the side. The reason for that is we have the fair and then we also have the interim events. As you guys know, they're run kind of jointly. And what's important to note is the ones that are highlighted in purple are actually positions that are being shared across both of those funds. So they're positions, so if we approve one, we need to approve the other.
So, Madam Chair, Phil, before we get into the special salary adjustment requests,
Yep.
help me understand when it's appropriate to discuss COLA, merit, because one of the things that, we discussed amongst sort of our elected officials group is what opportunity we might have to utilize a merit pool for some of, at least a portion of some of those special salary adjustments. So I know this is an enterprise fund, but I just want to be equitable in how we
Yep.
apply that.
Yep.
And then to add on to that, you and I had some conversations, and I was hoping that all the personnel requests would be taken together, separate from the other budget. So
Yeah, and we will, at the moment, we're just going through these self-supported funds. I think both questions are appropriate. A couple things. So today and this morning will be an appropriate time to discuss the merit and COLA. I think there's probably more of a question is, do we want to get through the public testimony before we do that, or do we want to start that conversation beforehand? We have time that we can do that. I think you're right, and I anticipate the question in terms of how do doing special salary adjustments tie in with what your intentions are regarding something countywide. Even when we talk about that here a little bit later, we can take that into consideration. We can go back and adjust these based on that, on the kind of on a broad, as general rule. We want to say, hypothetically, I'm not making a recommendation, but we want to approve X% COLA, but we want to remove that amount from the special salary adjustments, that can be done. One of the things to note, especially with these self-supported funds, whatever we do on that, to your point of equity, whatever we do on it countywide, they need, because they submitted balanced budgets, they'll actually have to go back and amend their budgets to incorporate whatever that broad decision that you make is, right? Because right now they won't be in balance if we do a 3% something or whatever that amount is. They'll have to make adjustments to it. And they're familiar with that and prepared to do so. That's very normal. But then how that ties into your special salary adjustments, I think is fair. So to the extent you want to, we can hold off on these because they are special salary adjustments. I'm fine with that. It's just us trying to get through these self-supported funds at the beginning. That's the only reason, Madam Chair, why we're looking at these at the moment is because of the type of funding.
So this is all of them here,
Between
Okay.
fair and interim events, yes.
right? So I would be okay with going ahead with all of them, except I'd like to revisit the Director of Western Idaho Fair that's showing up in both the fair and interim on the top line.
Okay, so
The minus 4.36 and minus 2.4, yeah. I'd like to revisit those.
okay, do you want me to, I want to see acknowledgement, but do you want to approve it for the moment or just hold off on the director position?
I'd like to hold off
Okay.
on that position.
That position?
Yeah,
Sure.
it's showing up in
Yes for all
both,
the others.
and yes for all the others,
Are you okay with that? Okay.
yes. Are you okay with that?
I am,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, great.
So how do you, Phil, how do you do that? You just make a parking lot note in terms of things we're gonna go back and revisit, or how are we?
At the moment, I'm just not putting in yes or no, and
Okay.
we won't
Just
leave
leave it
here
blank.
until we have one of those two words in every box.
That's easy.
Well, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay there? Okay.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, next up is drug court and mental health court. These are the specialty courts. These ones are the ones that are funded by the revenue that comes in through the programs. And so you can see, we'll just go down the list. I mean, to the extent we have the drug and alcohol counselor for the first one. This is a part-time to full-time change.
Madam Chair, Phil, I'm inclined to support all of those, but again, per the previous conversation, we'll want to revisit the special salary adjustments based on what we do around merit and COLA.
Okay. Good with that?
Agree, yeah, and I
Okay.
would say on this one, for sure, yes on all of them, but I would leave the special salary adjustment for the TMT as central supervisor, is that central?
Why am I not finding it?
SNTR? Yeah, I would like to leave that one blank, just to make sure that we actually have a conversation around that.
Are you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, next up is waterways.
Right, yeah, exactly. I want to make sure that that happens. Yeah.
So for waterways, we have a maintenance mechanic, two special salary adjustments, one for maintenance mechanic and one for maintenance mechanic supervisor.
Bill, the supervisor split between waterways and
Okay. Oh, that's
Are we
asterisk.
looking at waterways? I'm sorry, I was looking at
Yeah,
something
sorry,
else.
no, you're okay. Yep, waterways.
Waterways, okay.
And as Anthony just noted, there's the asterisk, the maintenance mechanic supervisor, the funding for that is split between both waterways and parks. So this funding that's highlighted here for the special salary adjustment is just the waterways portion. There's also a portion, so it's probably, I'm gonna assume it's 50-50, but it's split between parks as well.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Yes.
For both of them? I just want to clarify.
Yes.
Yep,
Yes.
okay.
I don't know how you record a thumbs
Yeah.
up, but sure.
Double thumbs up.
But we got video, you're streaming, so your
Okay,
thumbs up
got
is
it.
well recorded. All right. Let's see, make sure.
Just so the audience knows, I have a scratch in my contact this morning, so I'm not winking at Phil. Okay, just so you know.
Shucks, Phil.
It's okay, Phil.
Next up is,
It look odd, you know.
I'm off to a good start this morning between notifications and winking.
sign.
That's right. Next up is consolidated elections. What this shows is two new positions. What this is shifting of positions between funds. So these are positions that have existed that are moving from the general fund to consolidated elections. There was some motion between the two budgets this year.
So would that be a neutral fiscal impact?
Yeah, there's no, yeah, in terms of countywide, there's no one's getting increases or anything. It's just rebalancing the funding sources is what this is.
Okay.
Using the state funding for these two positions.
I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Next is EMS, a new position for Department Education Coordinator.
Yes.
Or suggest yes.
Yes.
Hold on.
Next is mosquito abatement. We have a special salary adjustment. I assume this kind of falls under the previous statements regarding special salary adjustments.
Correct.
Okay.
Good.
And then pest, similar special salary adjustment. I think, yeah. That's same as before. Okay.
Is that following, or that's under pest itself, not under weed or mosquito?
Correct.
Do you know, is that one?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, yeah, found it. Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, and then after that, our 3% fund cap. So that didn't change anything significantly here, and that's because we were operating in the self-supported funds, right? So that's why we worked through those. In terms of the requests, aside from, I don't think we have any CIP or EOE for those funds, correct? Okay, we've worked through the easy stuff, right? So it is almost 9:40. We've got 20 minutes, and I'll defer to you guys a little bit because it's ultimately the feedback for you. I think what we had talked about, Madam Chair, really is shifting to the high level, the big stuff at this point. So I'm ready and willing to shift to it. Again, at 10 a.m., 10 a.m. we'll take public testimony. So to the extent that you want to recess at some point before that public testimony, I'll defer to you when you want to do that.
Okay,
And kind of
great.
go from there. With that, though, we can start looking at, so our major decisions the largest decisions we'll make are at the county-wide level, what we just discussed. So one, both is revenue streams. So just to revisit revenue streams at the moment. Right now, we have built in taking the full 3% for property taxes. That's the 3% increase on our property taxes from last year. Are you guys okay with where we stand with taking that 3%?
I am, and for the simple reason that inflation is running at about 2.9%. So just to keep up with inflation, I think it makes good sense.
Okay.
I would echo that and also note, just based on the history of what a few boards ago occurred in terms of not taking any increase in base property taxes, I find that we're significantly behind in terms of meeting our capital obligations, and we've been catching up, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm also in favor of it with a slight caveat that the construction roll did increase by 20%. I know you said it wasn't significant, but that to me is a fairly significant number. And that might be an impact in the future. Well, it would be an impact in the future once we head into a recession, but at this stage, the 3% I'm fine with.
Okay. And just to clarify my earlier comments, it was probably less informed on my part. I think recognize that $900,000, it does have significance.
Yes.
I don't want to be on the record. That was more my basing off of recollection, not actual numbers.
And Madam Chair, if I may, Phil, before we sort of head into all of these conversations, just
Yep.
because we have our department directors, we have our fellow elected officials here, in the full kind of mode of transparency, I want to sort of let everybody know how I'm approaching thinking about all of these decisions. As you hopefully heard during budget presentations, I'm very interested in thinking about investments we make today so that we save money down the road. And again, I think there's a robbing Peter to pay Paul, moment that happens sometimes during budget where you can say, oh, we're cutting this, we're cutting that, but the costs often escalate as you go forward. So I'm very interested in sort of bucking up on doing some of those hard things this year and the coming years. I do have a concern, however, about a potential downturn in the next 18 to 24 months. So I think that for me will likely play into how I think about new positions. I'm not opposed to all new positions, but I am nervous about the idea of bringing on a lot of new positions and then potentially having to cut them in the future. I'm also very heartened by the fact that HR has started down the process of looking at pay bands for like positions, but I think we have a lot of work to do as a county to get ourselves to that place. So I can see how, given the current environment, why we have all of these special salary adjustments, but it's a little bit crazy to budget this way. So I am going to be interested in looking at using some kind of merit pool to help sort of regulate some of that, at least for this year, as a intermediate step before we get to a different place, hopefully next year. So I just wanted to share that from an overall framing for everyone before we get into making some of these substantive decisions.
Appreciate that, Commissioner Lachiondo. I might echo that as well. I know that HR is working really hard on getting us all into parity and equitable salary ranges. And so I think as we do move forward, I think this board is trying to look strategic and long-term, and we're not just going to be looking at this budget. We're going to be looking to the future and trying to anticipate with economic forecasting where the economy is headed, so we don't find ourselves in any kind of a downturn, in trouble, if you will. We also do have a master's facility plan that folks spend a lot of time and effort on, and it is a plan that needs to be implemented. However, the past boards have decided not to fund that. And I think the political will of this board is different, and we're going to be looking at long-term funding of that, and we're going to be talking about what that looks like over possibly even a 10-year plan to get that done.
And I'll just note, on the comments, the forecasting and the concern about being able to sustain whatever we do, I think is very appreciated on our part in terms of the office. That you heard me mention earlier, the ongoing versus one time. But I think particularly I read materials either about what the trend for growth is here in the valley. Is it going to sustain itself or not? I think everyone's kind of seen some of that, as well as just what bond markets are looking at in terms of rates. And what does that mean for future forecasting and the bond market's predictions as to which way the economy is headed.
Thank you. So we're moving into new construction rule?
Yep.
Is that where we're at? So we're all, yeah.
Take a quick break
wanna
before
take a
the
break?
10 a.m. I have some questions for.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break, and we're going to come back at 10 a.m.
And we'll do our
open it
public
up for
hearing?
for public hearing for testimony.
Great.
And
Then
then
we'll be
we'll
prepared
jump back into this.
Yep, after the hearing.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We're on the record. Good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, June 17th. The time is 10 a.m., and the Board of Ada County Commissioners are in session for our budget deliberations. If you're in the room, first of all, if you have a cell phone, make sure it's silenced. Thank you for that. We're going to go into taking our public testimony. Before we do that, if you'd like to testify, there's a sign-up sheet in the back. Please go ahead and sign up, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to provide testimony today. And we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. We have all three commissioners with us today. And Ms. Judy, Ms. Clerk, do we have anyone so far that has signed up?
I haven't looked back
Okay, let's go ahead and with a show of hands, how many people are here to provide public testimony? Excellent, okay. We are streaming live, so this will be on YouTube, just so you know, not to make you nervous, just so you know. So instead of having everyone just sign in and try to go in any order, I'm going to go ahead and start on this side of the room, and we'll just kind of snake our way through, okay? And then we'll jump to the back side of this room and all the way up to the front, and we'll just do that. To make it easy. Okay, so let's start with this side of the room. Anyone that is providing public testimony, come on up and state your name for the record. And you don't need to give us your address, but you can tell us where you live, Boise, Meridian, whatnot. Okay? Well, she's first. We're gonna try to be in order. Okay, but after this, let's try to stay in order, kind of row by row, so we can kind of move the process forward. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Gary Rader, member of the Boise's North End Neighborhood Association Board of Directors. On behalf of Nina and several other neighborhood associations who are unable to testify today, I stand in support of Ada County's creation of a regional growth plan and the funding to support it. Those of us who volunteer in our communities recognize that we share common concerns with the consequences of explosive growth in Ada County. Programs such as public transit, adequate public services, preservation of open space, and housing development should be addressed in a coordinated effort by city government, ACHD, and Ada County. The proposed regional growth plan is necessary for this joint effort. So from your neighborhoods, thank you to the commission for proposing and quickly implementing this program. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions?
Yes, what was your last name again, sir?
Rader, R-O-E-D-E-R.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate that. Okay, now in the front. So you don't have to be the icebreaker. You can be second.
Thank you, County Commissioners. My name is Monica Forbes, and I'm the founder of Pure Wellness Center. And I'm here to represent the people that utilize the Recovery Community Center. Those who couldn't be here today will be sending in emails to you.
Okay.
And I'm just here to support the request that Ada County support Pure Wellness Center here in Boise and let you know about the work that we do as far as removing barriers to recovery, addressing the opiate crisis in our community, and providing long-term recovery supports for those that have a chronic illness with substance use disorder.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate the work that you do. Okay, who's next? Anyone else in the front row? Okay, let's go to the second row.
I'll go.
Okay, good. All right, come on up.
Hi, good morning. I'm Lisa Lazenby. I live in Boise. And
Lisa, can you repeat your name again?
hi, Lisa Lazenby, and I live in Boise. And I'm here to support Pure Wellness Center. I came across. I've been in Boise since September, and I first came here to go to a different treatment center. I came from Florida. I knew nothing about Idaho, so I had a confrontation with my advisor, and I ended up on the streets in Boise and had nowhere to go, and scared. And someone told me to go to Pure Wellness Center, and if it wasn't for Monica's daughter Rebecca and Monica, Monica drove me 4 hours to a location and to a detox facility. She saved my life, pretty much. And then when I got into a sober home, for the first few months of my recovery, I'm gonna have 6 months on July 4th. For the first 2 to 3 months of my recovery, I went to Pure Wellness Center every day. I before I got a job, I would volunteer my time helping out there. They have meetings all day long there, so I would go to meetings. That place really helped build my foundation for my recovery. Monica will answer the phone. She was really she'll answer the phone or answer my text message. She was really like family to me. I mean, I don't really have anyone here. It was a guy friend from home that flew me here to go to treatment here. So, and he was living at the mission. So when I got kicked out and knew no one, I didn't have anywhere to go. So it was really scary for me back during the holidays. So if it wasn't for this, and yeah, I'm like older, it's not like I'm a kid, but it's still scary when you have nowhere to go and you don't, and it's winter and you're not used to winter, you're from Florida. So, if it wasn't for Peer Wellness Center, I don't know what I would have done. So yeah, I'm here to support them. So if there's anything you could do, thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you,
Appreciate that.
Lisa.
Hi, my name's Christy Yergin. I'm from Meridian. I'm also here to support Pure Wellness. You cannot turn on the news or read the paper or listen to the radio without hearing about our epidemic. My guess is most, if not all of you, have been touched by this disease. Society wants us to get better, seek help and/or treatment. Sometimes those aren't financially feasible. Most addicts have alienated their friends and families, and we have no sense of purpose or foundation to start over. That is where Pure Wellness offers. We are welcomed with open arms and no judgment. Peer is designed to help get us back on our feet, whether it's job searches, resumes, studying for a GED, funding for treatment, finding housing, clothing, or a meal. Recidivism rate is extremely high for jails and prisons because the addicts get out and have no one, and they go back to what they know. I have watched Monica's passion with Peer flow over to everyone around her, and I've also watched her struggles with funding every year. You want an answer, a solution? Well, here's one. We need to utilize it. She gave me hope, a job, a sense of purpose when everyone else had turned their backs on me. She gave me the tools to believe that I was worthy and I could succeed. Honestly, without her, I may not have reconnected and repaired my relationship with my family. I have just celebrated over 2 years of sobriety.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Christine.
Okay, next row. Anyone? Okay, we'll skip to the row behind them. Yep, come on up.
All right, well, Commissioner Lacciando and Commissioner Visser and Commissioner Kenyon, thank you so much for your time. My name is Josh Scholler, and I am a Boise resident, and I live in the East End, and I work at Idaho Voices for Children. And so I'm here to give you feedback on Ada County's proposed FY 2020 budget, as we all here are as well, and specifically, I'm here to give you some benefits of the proposed $750,000 to address family homelessness throughout the county. As Idaho's population grows, the price of rent is continuing to outpace wages, and there is a growing need for investments dedicated to ensuring that folks aren't without a safe, stable, and affordable place to live. The need is most pressing in Ada County, where for every 100 modest income households, there are only 18, I repeat, 18 affordable and available places for them to live. So in every sense of the word, this $250,000 proposal fits every definition of investment that is common sense and fiscally responsible to make with taxpayer dollars. An analysis done by Boise State that I'm sure a lot of us have seen at one point or another shows us that millions of dollars that the county can save on an ongoing basis when we take a proactive and aggressively challenge our challenges of family homelessness across the county, instead of being reactive, where we are forced to needlessly spend more taxpayer dollars. Further, I think it's critically important to evaluate the negative impacts of family homelessness in the lenses of our lives and our other lenses of our lives and our communities. So for example, when we talk about the long-term impacts on our economy, our community health, and our education outcomes, there is a strong argument to make that there is no greater hindrance to positive outcomes for any of these than when Ada County family that works and contributes to the community can't afford a place to live, or even worse, they become homeless. When families are homeless, that takes priority over paying for health care. However, as with everyone else here today, we all still require medical care. When families are homeless, research shows us that students severely underachieve relative to their peers who are stably housed and have access to nutritious food. In fact, Rod Grammer, the president of Idaho Business for Education, was recently quoted as saying, "Poverty is our biggest challenge in education today." When families can't live where the parents work or are priced out of their homes and end up on the street, the long-term sustainability of our economy suffers. While these are three of just the main ways to look at the larger impacts of homelessness, I hope it provides you with a few different ways to think about the broad positive impacts of this line item that it could make and why it is indeed a prudent and sound investment for Ada County. There's no hiding the fact that you all have important decisions to make over the coming days and weeks as you seek to manage and help direct a rapidly growing county in the best way that you can. However, it's my hope that while you take all these items under consideration, you carefully consider the impact that aggressively tackling the challenge of family homelessness could make across many different sectors and industries throughout our county. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Josh.
Okay, anyone else from that row? Okay, moving to the row behind. Okay, continue to move to the row behind them. Okay, thank you. Come on up. I could just do it on my phone if you want.
I'm a little short.
Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for allowing us some space to be able to chat with you. So I am Stephanie Day. I am the Executive Director of Catch and live in Boise and our office is in Boise. However, our work covers Ada County. So we work to end homelessness in the community. And I'll just piggyback off of the last presenter about, we've heard that you guys might be considering joining our campaign to end family homelessness. And just wanted to kind of affirm that that would be an awesome decision to make if you wanted to do that. We have at Catch kind of an entry point for the entire county for people experiencing homelessness. And currently we have about 200 families that are in their cars or in shelters in the county. And so that is an actually fairly manageable amount of people to serve. So what we're hoping to do is over the next several years, there's like one giant wait list of families. If we can house those families, and we know that we have about 15 to 20 new families that hit the system each month, and create a mechanism to continue to support 15 to 20 families each month, then we can get people out of the system as fast as possible. And part of the reason that that's important is because the longer that people spend in a shelter or in a car, the less the urgency is there. It becomes normal, and it's a lot harder to work with people to get them out of homelessness when they've been in it for an extended period of time. It's much easier when it's still scary and there's a lot of motivation to get out of it. So if we could create that system to just get people out of the system as fast as possible, I really believe that we would reduce a lot of the recidivism that we see in the system. And also just wanted to mention that we could definitely use your support to leverage lots of money in the community to build the campaign. So it obviously will take a lot more than you guys would invest in it, but it would be a huge message to the community if you were behind it when we're approaching other funders as well. So thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. I have a quick question for you. Of the 200
Yes.
families that you've counted that are in cars or other shelters, how many of those have young children?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah. So for our purposes, they're all under 18, and it's pretty rare for someone to have just teenagers. Usually there's a child involved.
Okay.
That's younger.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your testimony. Okay, anyone else from that row? Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Ken Whittick. I'm the Executive Director of Supportive Housing and Innovative Partnerships, better known in the Valley as SHIP Housing. We provide housing, transportation, and employment opportunities for people in early recovery, mental health issues, substance homelessness. We actually have some dual diagnosis homes in the Valley, just recently opened 24/7 monitored dual diagnosis homes. I'm here to support Pure Wellness as a community partner with us. At any given time, we have 140 residents within our housing facilities. And I would probably say 50% of those utilize Pure Wellness's programming. It's a great asset for people in our housing, and we see the difference when people use those resources and those services. We see the differences in the success rate of them continuing in our housing and to continue in employment and continue to move on and make their short-term recovery or early recovery into long-term recovery. So I'm just here to support them in anything you guys could do to give them a hand. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
You may or may not have these statistics, but you mentioned dual diagnosis. With what you know about our population that suffers from dual diagnosis versus the capacity that we currently have, do you know what the delta is, the gap?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head. There's a lot of numbers floating around out there. There's always been the thing that everybody says, 80% of people that are at substance use or alcoholism, they're usually dual diagnosis. That's just a number that floats around out there. I know that years ago, there was a comment made by one of the past wardens out at the prison that they run the largest mental health facility in the world and substance use disorder facility in the world, or in Idaho, not in the world. And it's the truth.
Yeah.
And it's the cart before the horse before the cart. And is the mental health an issue because of the substance use disorder, or is the substance use disorder an issue of self-medication? You know, and it's a big issue and something we got to look at. We do, like I say, we do have the 2 dual diagnoses, a female and a male house, which houses 22 people. It's staffed 24/7 by qualified staff, and we're seeing great success with that. So,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, anyone from that row? Anyone left? Okay, we'll move to the row behind. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Brandy Ellison. I'm a volunteer at Pure Wellness Center. I started volunteering at Pure Wellness Center in 2016. Moving to a new state, I didn't know anybody. However, when I got introduced to Pure, that is when I met new friends, and Pure made me feel like I had a second home. Even though I don't struggle with addiction, however, I do struggle with mental health. And with mental health, Pure has helped me because I know I have a voice, and I love helping those in all types of recovery. And Pure Wellness is just an awesome place to go to.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else in that row? Come on up. Hey, welcome.
Hi.
I'm Jessica Johnson. I'm here in support of Pure Wellness Center as well. I'm a person in recovery from substance use disorder. I also have co-occurring mental health diagnoses. But my favorite thing to introduce about myself is I'm on my way to becoming a certified recovery coach. And Pure Wellness helped make that possible for me. It was 3 Thanksgivings ago when I first decided to check out Pure Wellness Center. I had nowhere to go. I didn't really have accepting family that would allow me to enter their home. So I had an idea to check out a potluck that was at Pure Wellness Center. And there was a full plate of food waiting for me in company of other people. It meant so much to me, being almost 8 months sober, that there was a place to be. And I found a community in my time of need. Later, I tried out the other meetings, and I was greeted when I walked in the door with, "How can I help with your recovery today?" They really think of everything. There's coffee, there's couches, there's an extra quiet room that you can go into if you need time to think or just need to meditate. Mostly there are people to talk to. Community is the greatest asset I found at Pure Wellness Center. People who know what you've been through, know what I've been through. If they haven't, they'll listen to you. My time working as a recovery coach intern has highlighted that people need all the same things I needed: resources, community, encouragement, understanding, someone who will hear them, and comfort. Pure Wellness's work doesn't end at referral either. They will be there every step of the way with me. And I'm proud to say that with their help, I'm 3 years and 3 months sober today.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Okay, anyone else in that row? Okay, we'll take the row behind that one then. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Stacy Roth. I live here in Boise, but I'm here representing Boise School District to talk about your exciting, innovative effort to address homelessness. As you know, Boise School District has, we see a direct impact of our kids that are homeless. This past year that just ended, we had a 42% increase in the number of homeless students in our school district, for a total of 819 students that were homeless. Now, while we've had homeless students for years, we've had a dramatic increase, and it touches every neighborhood in our city. For example, Southeast Boise, we had a 62% increase in our homeless students at Garfield Elementary. In North Boise, we had a 50% increase of our homeless students at North Junior High. And at West Boise, we had a 50% increase at Capitol High School.
Can I ask you, how are you measuring homelessness? Is it one night, a week?
So we use the federal guidelines for homelessness. So our homeless coordinator would be able to answer that better. One of our most alarming schools is Frank Church, our alternative high school, where 1 out of 4 students is considered homeless. So 25% of that school is homeless at any one time. So as our need for resources has increased with our number of homeless students increasing, the number of federal dollars we get for homelessness has decreased. So as a school district, we've tried to address this as best we can. We have 6 community schools that help serve that population, one being at Garfield Elementary. We've coordinated with lots of different entities in the city to try to address that. Our SAFE funds, which is our funds that we raise to help families with anything that they need, from first month's rent to turning electricity back on, anything. We have raised over $1 million. And last year, $136,000 went directly to help preventing or getting families either to stay in their homes or to get into some stable housing. So we applaud your efforts. It's an incredible need, and it has a direct impact on our community and the education of our kids.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
testimony.
Stacy, Madam Chair, I know you're here representing Boise School District, but I know you all collaborate quite a bit with West Ada. Would you be able to speak to what they're seeing at all?
Absolutely. While I don't have their numbers, we do collaborate all the time, and I'm comfortable saying it's a huge issue for West Ada School District as well. They're looking at all the same things we are, and I also know that their number, the federal dollars for homelessness, is going down. So as the need in the whole valley increases, the number of dollars we get decreases. So
Who would we contact to gather that information as well?
in West Ada, I would go with Diane Oliva.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, who's next? Anyone else in that row? Okay, we'll take the row right behind. That one, no? Okay, continuing. Anyone else in this side? No? Okay, we'll jump over to the back row on the left side. My left, your right. Welcome.
Thank you for listening. First, I want to say that I'm terrified to talk in
Oh,
public.
that's okay.
so
Just
it's
relax.
gonna
It's
be
family
weird.
here. We're just one big family.
Okay. I appreciate you doing this and listening. My son had a dual diagnosis because he was bipolar, and because he wasn't getting proper treatment, he decided to treat himself with alcohol. Even though I told the doctors that he was drinking, they still gave him medication that killed him, so he is no longer alive.
Sorry.
I searched and searched for something like this. He died at 42, 2 years ago, on Thanksgiving Day, preparing meals for homeless and people who didn't have any food. And if he'd had a place like this to go, I think that he would have been able to find help, because his biggest problem was living where he was surrounded by people who enabled him. And he was ashamed, so he stayed away from me because he didn't want me to know he was going downhill. So I think that we really desperately need something like this. And for the homeless, I got him into housing, which may have been a mistake, but so he wasn't homeless. I got him that kind of help, but I think that they need to be together in groups where they can help each other, and people that understand and keep an eye on them too, so that they can make sure they get the help. So I think the Peerness Center is a wonderful thing.
All right, thank you for your brave testimony. Appreciate it. Okay, is there anyone else in that aisle? Come on up. Hi, welcome.
Hi, I'm Christina. That was my mother.
Okay.
So I have a picture of my brother because I don't want it to look like it. But I'm also bipolar and struggle. But I refuse to drink alcohol because I don't want to end up like my brother and drinking with my meds, and it's not good. But they provide a place for peer wellness, of course. But they provide a place not only for me to go and just talk to, but they provide we get together and go bowling every other Saturday, and they provide pretty much something every Saturday to get together to do. And I didn't find out about this place until I had to go to Pathways because I was having a breakdown. So anything you can do to help the Peer Wellness Center is greatly appreciated. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, is there anyone left on that aisle? That row? No? Okay. Well, yeah, come on up. Hi, welcome.
Morning. My name is Lois Morgan, and I'm from Boise. Excuse me. I just had an email about this hearing this morning, and I strolled over from Coffee at Java and thought this is a good chance to talk about homelessness. And I know you all care about that very much. About 2 weeks ago, my 50-year-old niece came to me and said she had lost her housing, and she has a 9-year-old daughter. And I said, "Oh my God, you're homeless." And she went, "No, I can't be homeless." And then I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put it that way." And I was shocked when I went with her to try to find something for her to live in. I want to tell you, and she works as a CNA, there's nothing in this county, I guess, because even Nampa and Caldwell are full. And so I went to a friend of mine because I didn't know what she was going to do. And he had a room, and he is allowing her to stay in his room now, and her daughter is with her father right now. When he no longer will allow her to stay, I don't know where she's going. She's going to be homeless, and we know we don't need to put any more people, as Stephanie said, out on the streets. I went to a meeting the other day, and they said homelessness is now reaching into the middle classes, which makes a job on the side here, makes a job like a CNA look good for $12 an hour if you can make that. So this is getting catastrophic. It's really out of control. Excuse me, I'm not sure what all you could do about this problem. Finally, I see that Boise City is loosening up a little bit on zoning laws and that sort of thing. Boise City has a history of boarding houses way back, and we need them desperately. You know that McCall has put in dormitories for their workers because Shore Lodge couldn't get workers. And I think we're going to have to do something very innovative. Maybe put them outside of town, maybe in your jurisdiction, and run buses or something to help these people. I want to tell you, it is so frightening to not be able to find a place to take yourself and your daughter. I know you care about that, and so I just want to emphasize again what people are facing out there. It's horrible. We don't know because we're protected, but it's horrible for them to realize that all of a sudden they've lost everything, have financial difficulties, and there's nowhere to go. So Pure Wellness, I know my niece will be going there. It's a very worthy cause. And I'd just like to, I'd probably never be here again, but I'd just like to advocate for rapid transit. So we stop having that behemoth that goes out and comes in. Is there anything we can do to get that stopped and help our atmosphere, the ecology, everything? Thanks so much for being so friendly that I felt like I could come up here.
Sure. Thank you. Anyone else in that row? No? Okay, we'll take the row then, coming forward. Okay, the next row. Next row. There we go. Hi, welcome.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sherman, and I live at 3208 Treasure Drive in Boise, Idaho, 83703. And I also have been sent to this kind of last minute. So I work for LADA Community Action Partnership, and we serve Ada Elmore, and Oahe counties, so we're really El Ada Ow. We've been in existence for over 50 years, part of the war on poverty from the Johnson administration. We serve about 30,000 people in those 3 counties, and have fairly recently in our history kind of gotten into the housing business. We own a lot on 28th Street that we've just gotten P&Z to agree to let us take the existing kind of terrible housing down, and there are six units, 3 duplexes, and we're going to put indie dwells in place of those. So we're hoping the city council will be approving of that. We also own, this is where, I'll say several acres out on Florence that we call Celebration Acres, that we have some preliminary money from the city to build out there, and we're looking for partners in that. So I think that's mainly why I'm here. I myself, my role at ELADA is I'm the housing specialist for veterans. We have a grant through the VA called Supportive Services for Veterans Families. And I serve in a year about 140 veterans families. We do housing prevention, homelessness prevention, and then rapid rehousing and rapid resolution for those individuals. This year, due to the fact that housing is in a crisis, we've already spent our TFA. We've spent more than 90% of our TFA, our temporary financial, what's the A for? Assistance, thank you, for those individuals. And our year doesn't end until September 30th. So right now we're kind of we're gonna have to start telling our veterans, well, welcome to ELADA. We're supposed to be able to assist you, but we've run out of funds. We've already run out of funds for homelessness prevention this year, and we haven't hit what we normally hit in numbers. We're on tap to hit that 140, so we've served about 100 at this point. The housing market is tougher and tougher, and that's kind of why we've as an organization, I think we've held on to Celebration Acres for these past, I think it's almost 7 years that we've had that property. It's a beautiful piece, and I think the indie dwell idea, or the ability to put housing in people's backyards, I would love to see out of our county some variety of tax savings or some savings for people who put in accessory dwelling units and allow those to be kept at affordable rates. I'm not sure of the legality of that, but I know in other places, I know we're talking to the city about sewer hookups, and I don't know if the county does sewer and trash and all those things that could help incentivize people to hold on to those extra units as affordable for our children and for folks who really need it. I can answer a lot of questions about homelessness. We keep track, we keep the by name list of homeless veterans. Right now, there are 125 homeless veterans that meet that definition of either in a shelter or living in their vehicles or someplace uninhabitable. And that's what we're trying to house. And I know the city has, with Diana's help, has Valor Point opening up, or breaking ground soon. And I think it's a doable. We have a doable homeless problem. We are not Los Angeles. We're Boise. We're Ada County. So we can solve this, and it's great that you're looking at this, and I'm
Thank you.
pleased.
For your
Thank you.
testimony. Appreciate
Any
it.
questions?
Not at this point. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Is there anyone else on that row? Okay. let's keep moving forward then. The next row up. Next row up. Next row up. Raise of hands. Anyone left to testify? Oh, great. Okay, super. We'll jump to the front row. Hi, welcome.
Good morning. My name is Alan Taggart, and I live in Southeast Boise, and I also work in Boise at the University of Idaho Extension Office. I am an extension educator, assistant professor with University of Idaho, and I lead the Ada County 4-H Youth Development Program. The youth of Ada County are facing many challenges. Not only are youth facing more physical health and mental health challenges than ever before, many are not being equipped with the knowledge and skills they need to succeed in the knowledge and experience economy that we live in today. This is something that has been recognized in many reports, including from the United Way of Treasure Valley Community Assessment and the recent Idaho at Risk report for the governor. One possible solution in addressing this issue is harnessing the existing cooperatives partnership that Ada County has had with University of Idaho for over 100 years. Specifically, 4-H Youth Development is a county-based, volunteer-driven program run through University of Idaho Extension for youth ages 5 through 18. Ada County provides funding for the operational costs of our office. The mission mandates of 4-H are in the areas of science, civic engagement, and healthy living. Our slogan is "Learn by Doing," and we engage thousands of Ada County youth in hands-on learning experiences that truly prepare our youth with the skills they need to be future leaders. Here with me today are some of our 4-H ambassadors, and they have benefited greatly from their participation in the 4-H program, and they are very active in our community. Through the continued support of Ada County 4-H can continue to help more youth learn the skills and gain the knowledge that they need. In the recent budget proposal submitted to you by our interim county chair, Andrew Bingham, Ada County 4-H has requested $8,000 for a full-time AmeriCorps position. This position will be specifically focused on delivering STEM programs such as robotics and outdoor education to schools and community organizations that we partner with. When a full-time benefited position costs upwards of $45,000, this AmeriCorps position is much more affordable at $8,000 and has the potential of reaching and making an impact with thousands of more Ada County youth. I look forward to continuing to work with Commissioner Kenyon, Commissioner Visser, and Commissioner Laciando in helping our Ada County youth overcome the challenges they face and be prepared for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Can you give us an approximate number of how many 4-H students that you serve in Ada County per year?
So as far as the whole package,
The 4-H.
we serve about over 3,500 youth in the county each year. Enrolled members, we have about 550 currently.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Thanks.
Okay, next.
Hi, I'm Abigail Spencer. I live in Southeast Boise. I'll be a senior at Timberline this fall, and currently I serve as the Southern District representative for all of 4-H in the southwestern Idaho. My life has been changed through 4-H, not only because of the fact that I, a girl who lives on a half-acre 10 minutes away from downtown, has been able to learn about things such as sustainable agriculture and how we make our farms, and especially small farms, work together in order to provide food and healthy living for our community. Even to the point where now my sister, under the 4-H exemption that has been put out by the county, has sheep in our backyard. I have been able to learn about these things that I would have never, as a high schooler living in pretty much downtown Boise, been able to learn and know through the 4-H program. 4-H has also taught me about civic engagement to the point where I have been very comfortable speaking not only to my state legislators, but they also teach you in the Know Your Government program, which is a program that works on the state level as well as the county level, teaches you how to do things like write letters to your legislators, to the point where I'm pretty sure the poor staffer who has to answer all Senator Crapo's emails finds me annoying.
That's just fine. You keep up the good work.
But 4-H has also taught me how to live healthily, to the point where I regularly know how to eat well through their family and consumer science classes, which teach you things such as how to bake your own bread and do things that allow you to live less on the highly processed food that is in our supermarkets today, and learn how to live more on what you can make in your own home. In conclusion, 4-H has taught me so much about how to live my life sustainably, well, and healthily, to the point where I would not be the same person without it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate it. Okay, who's next? Hi, welcome.
My name is Avery Smock, and I am 16 years old. I have been a part of 4-H in the Little Explorers 4-H group for 4 years now. My projects include Know Your Government, Leadership, Candy Making, and Baking. When I tell people I'm in 4-H, they instantly think cows and horses. But 4-H is so much more than that. In these past 4 years, it has taught me and helped me grow into the person I am today. One thing it has taught me is courage to step out of my comfort zone and try new things. 4-H has also taught me leadership within my club and my community. This year, I was on the Know Your Government Steering Committee, where we do all the background and behind-the-scenes stuff for the conference each year. I am also an Ada County ambassador and part of the leadership program. These groups have helped me tremendously in my skills as a leader. Being part of 4-H has been a lifesaver in the idea of public speaking. 4 years ago, you would never seen me standing up here telling you what 4-H has helped me accomplish, such as all the record books we have to do and winning a blue ribbon at fair last year for my demonstration. So no, 4-H isn't just cows and horses. All of us have learned new and exciting things and have enjoyed the thrill of different projects. We are people who are determined, organized, and a small fraction of kids our age who are willing to speak in front of all you today. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Great job. Thank you. Okay, come on up. Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Margaret Smock, and I'm in the Little Explorers 4-H Club and a district ambassador. I have been in 4-H for 4 years, and my projects include rabbit and shooting sports. When someone asks what I have learned most from 4-H, I respond with responsibility. According to my mom, I'm a slow learner in this topic. I respond with responsibility because participating in a rabbit project has taught me to be responsible for something or someone other than myself. Shooting sports taught me to be responsible with a firearm safety and the responsibility to remember all my equipment. 4-H has also taught me how to speak in front of and coordinate with people. I get nervous talking in front of crowds, but 4-H has helped me improve this skill with my presentations on my projects. I learned how to coordinate with people when I reached out to a radio station to advertise Ada County's annual benefit dinner. I learned how to send business emails and make sure all of the information was correct. 4-H isn't just about bringing your cows or sheep to fair and about winning lots of ribbons. It is about helping your community and growing as a person, and 4-H has done that for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. Is there one more? No? Okay. Anyone come in late that would like to testify before we close the public hearing? No? Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and just wanted to send appreciation from the board to everyone who came up and talked to us. It's important that we hear directly from the community and get feedback and input, and it's very important to all of us.
Thank you. And I expect one of these young ladies is going to be sitting up here on the dais in a few years.
Yeah. Okay, public hearing is closed. Let's go ahead and we'll reopen for budget deliberations, and we'll have Phil come up and take us through the process. Continue to take us through the process. Thank you, everyone. If you don't want to stay for this part of it, feel free. This is a good time.
I wouldn't blame you if you didn't.
Yes, it's like watching paint dry, part of it. Thanks again. Appreciate your involvement. Phil, we don't have our computers on.
I'm working on that right now.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yep.
You're our AV guy, too?
I am.
There we go.
Okay.
All right,
Okay,
Madam
we're
Chair, are
ready.
you guys ready to go?
I think so.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for opening up the hearing for public testimony. I think it's a good addition and something we can, as we do our postmortem afterwards, it's a good opportunity for us to allow voices to be heard like we just did. I think it makes a big difference in the process. All right, circling back to property taxes. So now we can kind of hit the ground running in terms of deliberations. Some of those topics you heard about we'll be revisiting, but we've still got a few to get through before we get to that point. So we last covered the 3% in new taxes with taking that, and then we began discussions on the new construction roll, but didn't ever kind of get a say on the new construction roll. So in terms of taking of the new construction roll, this is those taxes that we recoup on all that new growth in the area. As was noted by Commissioner Visser, it is up by $900,000 from last year. So it's definitely a good benefit in terms of a revenue stream for us, and one of the ways that growth at least helps pay for some of itself. Yeah.
Phil, do we happen to have a breakdown on business versus residential, the commercial versus residential on that?
Kathleen, I don't think we have a breakdown between those two. I think we can work with the assessor's office to get the makeup.
Yeah, I'd like to see a breakdown.
The breakdown between commercial versus residential in terms of what the tax base. I think we can get that information.
Okay.
It does exist. We
Yeah,
can get
that's
that
good.
breakdown.
Yeah.
All right, we'll chase that down for you.
Well, I'm inclined at this point to leave it in at the full amount. I think we can go the other direction as we deliberate if we need to, but for now, I'd like to leave the full amount in.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I agree and believe that, this is when we talk about growth paying for itself, this is our opportunity to utilize some of this funding for some of our very pressing needs.
Okay.
And just so the public knows who's listening, we don't have impact fees currently that would help growth pay for itself, so this is a really important tool that we do have. Okay?
Okay.
All right, we're good with that?
Okay.
Okay.
Unless you have a desire to, I'm going to skip over foregone, and I kind of assume that's one of those things that we would discuss at the end based on where the
That's
budget
fine.
sits. Yeah.
You okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next, countywide personnel expenses. So this is the one that Commissioner Laciando, you had referenced earlier. So it's a great opportunity to discuss anything you want to do here, because obviously it has a significant fiscal impact depending on what we do.
I have a question. So on the, is it the COLA or the merit? It would be probably the merit. I know that it would impact the smaller departments differently, and maybe Cassie can speak to this, but I want to be cognizant of if we increase these, are some of the larger departments benefiting more than the smaller departments? It's just really difficult for them to see any benefit at all on the really small ones. Can you speak to that for us, Cassie, so we understand that a little bit better? Since I can't articulate it very well. I remember you saying something a couple weeks ago.
It's not that they would receive less because it's a percentage, but if it's a small number, it's harder to divide up in a smaller department. So if you have 1% and you're dividing that up between 3 employees, it's difficult to differentiate for performance. So it's more that if it's a smaller percentage, it's more difficult for the smaller departments for differentiation purposes, not for actual amount of money.
Okay, is there a threshold? Is it like 2 or 3% that it becomes?
The more you give, the easier it is to
Yeah,
differentiate.
so
Smooth.
just checking, just gave you an opening there, no.
That was Cassie being helpful.
I remember you saying something like, anything under 2% is really difficult, yeah. Okay, thanks.
So is this the point, Madam Chair, Phil, where we start spitballing some numbers?
Go
or
for it.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Well, I think it's easier to go up than down. So I'm inclined to, and also based on that and some of the conversation that we've already had here today in terms of these special salary adjustments, I'm inclined to start with a 2% merit and a 1% COLA, knowing that we hopefully can go up, especially on the COLA component, because just flat cost of living is rising. If we do that, however, if my fellow commissioners are inclined, I would like to ask our departments and offices to take that into account and go back and take a look at their special salary adjustment requests. using that as a pool to think about how they can make some changes within their budgets as it relates to those special salary adjustment requests. And I don't know if this is a directive we issue, go back and lop off 2% on those. I don't know, but I think that's part of our discussion.
I would encourage everyone, if you haven't already, sat down with Cassie and gone through your requests with Cassie. This would be a good time to do that in the next day or two, because we will be circling around to all of these towards, I think, even if we approve the budget today, I don't think we will. But we want to make sure that everyone's had an opportunity to speak with HR. And I think Diana mentioned earlier that economically speaking, in terms of forecasting, we may be looking at downturns, and we don't want to put in new positions and salaries and things like that without really thinking this through. So I would really encourage you, again, if you haven't had an opportunity to talk with HR, to do so. I would approve the 2% merit and the 1% being placed in there for now as well.
I'll do that in just a moment, real quick, because I think it's on point to what you were just messaging. Something I missed earlier when we were talking about the personnel ones, the color coding as we review these. So I'm just going to highlight over here. Those, don't do that. The gray ones are the ones that are within the budget. I'll remind you those when we get to them. I think more notably those, so you see here on the fair, for example, the purple ones. These are the ones where HR has recommended that they be added into the budget. And the purple ones would be ones where HR is recommending that this special salary adjustment still occur even in addition to a COLA or merit. That's why I think I didn't mention this earlier, and I should have. So the gray is within budget. The blue would be budget transfers, like those ones we saw from consolidated elections. Orange will be supplementals. All of those just show where they're coming from or what the impact is. But the purple ones are the ones specifically that HR is recommending. This comes out of some of the work that they've done on the tiers and the levels, just to lift a few positions up that have been specifically identified as shortfalls in terms of those positions. So that kind of ties in, I think, to what you were saying, though, the caveat being most other special salary adjustments could be with whatever directive you set on those.
So with that in mind, and again, not knowing kind of where people are at in these conversations with HR, if you don't already know if HR is recommending your folks be boosted up, and really because of some of the work that they've done, I know we're interested in making sure that we have equity across the county, and at least from that initial work, we've had conversations that at a very baseline needs to happen, and merit and COLA would be on top of that for those positions. But for everybody else, I think this is an iterative discussion that we need to have about some of these special salary adjustments.
Yeah, just to weigh in, the board had significant discussions with HR, and Cassie was most helpful in letting us know the disproportionate impact that COLA increases have had on our budget, particularly as it affects starting pay. That has just kept going up, 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 and that impact, when you take those numbers in the loaded, i.e. with benefits, retirement, et cetera, it was a significant impact. Therefore, I'm in favor of just merit this year, because the last 2 years that I was here, and even the year before that, it was 3 plus 3 plus 3 COLA. I would be fine with 2 or 3% just merit, and see if we can lessen that impact on our budget that it's done in the past.
Thank you. I know a couple of departments have expressed concerns about compression, is what they've called it, where folks coming in and folks who've been there for a while, those salaries are getting compressed because of basically only COLA being taken. So thank you for that. Appreciate that. Okay, so we'll plug that in for now.
Yeah, based on what...
And then we'll revisit this again.
So everyone can see, I think, what you see, the 2% merit and the 1% COLA based on the feedback given, the dollar-wise, Commissioner Visser, the dollar impact would be the same. It's how it's being distributed based on the comments. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, Phil, again, timing of this week and how this works. I'm trying to get a look at some of our departments and offices in terms of what they need to be able to take what their proposed merit pool would be based on this and the time they would need to come back and revisit some of these special salary adjustments. When I say this, I want to
Yeah, if,
I want to offer that I'm very cognizant of the work that we need to do to be able to retain employees and make sure that we are staying competitive within what is a competitive market. I'm struggling with the amount of special salary adjustments, and I recognize that this is a function of just where we've been as a county, and we're going to have the opportunity to improve. So I don't know if this is a question for you, if we have a few elected office holders who would like to speak to this, but that would be helpful for me.
maybe if I can ask a follow-up question to that, just to clarify on, and timing I do think matters here, exactly to what you're going at. One, the amounts that we're talking about, we'll have to determine the significance. Our office can look at and say, all right, if you say 3% total here, just like you have, but want to offset any of those special salary adjustments by that amount, we can try to calculate what that might be. But if you're asking specifically each department and office to look at each individual request and either say, yes, we'll offset this, or no, we won't, that's going to be, I don't know how much time there is available to pull that off. Again, we need to make these deliberative decisions. Now, one of the things, we can develop a budget with some general assumptions, and then we have the months of July to iron out some of that, where we won't have it here where you can see it, what those differences are, but we can work out what those will be. And as I mentioned before, it's not uncommon for some parameters to be put on these. We may not have it down to the dollar, but we'll at least be in the range in terms of what we want to do for those. So I guess that, my question there is, to what degree of detail do you want to be able to make those decisions? Because it's going to be difficult, not just for the departments, but you're probably asking quite a bit of HR in our office just to affirm or not.
Well, I think maybe when we go through this budget and we're doing all of the personnel together and Cass and HR is here, I think maybe at that time we can ascertain how much more detail we'll need.
I want to call a lifeline here, if we don't mind. I want to ask Prosecutor Bennett to come and address how she sees this particularly working out for her office. Is that what we call it? It's like on
Subject
a
matter
lifeline?
expert.
Yes.
Lifeline. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Chair, Commissioner Lachiondo. What I thought, based on what you gave us, I would go back, visit with my team, look at the 3% compared to the salary adjustments, work with HR, and then come back to you with a proposal of how that would work in coordination with my salary adjustments. So for example, it may be an easy answer that this works and I can remove them, or there's to get me where I need to go in terms of what I presented. That would be my intent, and I would start as soon as we break in doing that. And I think we're very, very focused on this. We have been for many months, and so I think it will be an easy task for me to do that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I see we have Director Burns who has some thoughts about this.
Thank you.
Am I excused? Thank
Yes,
you.
yeah. Thanks, Jen. Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. I just need a point for clarification. So some of the salary adjustments that are included, I think that Phil alluded to this, but I just need clarification so I understand what you need. Some of those were included in our budget, and we had budget authority because, for example, we had an employee at a higher rate who retires, and then that gives us a little wiggle room in that budget. If we made those salary adjustments within our budget, have gone through HR, do you still want us to look at those, or do you just want us to look at salary adjustments that are in the supplemental package, that are above and beyond what our existing budget was?
Supplemental, above and beyond, not what's already in your budget.
Yes, that's fine, as long as we are not getting into a position of creating inequities between supplemental and existing, if that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am, and that's something that we definitely try to do, Commissioners.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other thoughts from departments or elected office holders if we go this route? This is something I would want to see applied evenly across the county, that we'd be asking all of you to kind of go back and take a look at your requests. Thoughts, concerns, questions? Did I get a thumbs up, Director O'Meara? Okay.
Okay, good. Is Tony here? Okay, you okay with that? Okay. And Dottie's not here, right? Anyone from the coroner's office? There were a couple questions.
They're busy.
They're busy, yeah. We're all busy. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay,
Okay. So I think based on that, obviously there's feedback people have received in here. We'll follow up with messaging for those who are not present at the moment. But also, we'll try to work with everyone to kind of figure out what that is. But for the moment, we'll build in where we are.
okay. And then if we
I wouldn't be
adjustments-
surprised, we're probably gonna revisit this topic as we look at the supplemental, or the personnel issues specifically. Okay. As a follow-up item, just real quick, the question was asked about the new construction role, that distribution, residential versus, residential makes up 67.97% of that, which means it's about $3.7 million is coming in from residential, and the remainder is coming up actually from a distribution a little over 25%, so it's 25.86% is commercial. The remainder is farm, other, or personal property tax. But the two, so you have 67 versus 25%.
That helps, okay.
Yep.
Thank you,
No
appreciate
problem.
that.
Okay, master's facility plan. I don't know that I guess this is a good question for you now. As we had discussed, this is just a spot if you did want to put a lump sum amount towards a master facility plan. We can come back to this, but if you have an intention to do this at this point, depending on that amount, we can do that now.
I have some comments on that. You want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, so a couple of things that I'm looking at and taking into consideration is, well, first of all is deferred maintenance. And we're getting all of our deferred maintenance put together on one platform, and we'll be able to do better projections moving forward in the future. For this sitting board, we have deferred maintenance that has been deferred, and we have a lot of it. It could be upwards from 30 to 50 million, so it's significant. For example, the roof on this building is coming up to 20 years and needs to be replaced, as well as aging juvenile detention center, and as we know, the public security complex as well. So we have a lot of those issues, in addition to the master's facility plan, which calls for, I believe, about 250 million. It's probably going to be a lot more by the time we get it funded. I had development services, well, I did not have development services, but they provided us with some of the costs of delaying these facilities and build-outs. And I have a slide that was given to me, and it came from, I believe, last year or 2 years ago, from 2018 to 2019, the cost of the delay on the public safety security building was $1,037,900. The cost to taxpayers for not doing anything. On the courthouse complex admin building, this is this building here, and now that we have 3 new judges, we are mandated to fulfill our obligations there with not only facilities, but clerks and the personnel to support those judges. We don't have a choice. And that cost taxpayers almost $3 million, cost of delay for not funding anything. Coroner's office was close to $1 million. So it was about $5 million in 1 year that we are charging taxpayers for not being bold and setting a long-term financial plan for this master's facility plan. So having said that, and looking at the deferred maintenance, I know that we're probably not gonna be able to go out for bond. We looked at Canyon County and what happened over there. There are options, though. There's lease options, certificate of participation options, but we have to be able to fund those. And so we have to have a dedicated funding source or funding stream to be able to service that debt, whether it's a loan or a lease. And looking at the numbers that we have asked our legal staff to put together, The payments are going to range probably from minimum, I would say 2.5 to probably 5 million a year. So I would think it's more than that, honestly. I'm going to be, I think, wanting or willing to put in 5 million as an ongoing dedication into that category, and maybe look at taking some foregone to be able to finally get some of this stuff done, so we don't continue to go in the hole by not doing it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm willing to start out with you at 5 million. I'm not sure at the end of the day that we're gonna be able to keep that full amount in there once we get to some additional urgent capital needs that we need to take care of that aren't necessarily within the master facilities plan, but I'm willing to put that down as a placeholder for now.
Okay.
I also, just continuing kind of my original preface, we have a lot of requests for new positions. We have 70 new positions requested. And I have a lot, I know there's some big pressing needs within some of those new positions. But I also just want to reiterate, I am very nervous about a potential downturn in 18 to 24 months and would hate to see us in a position, as I know happened 10 years ago, where we had to cut significant numbers of staff. So I just want to put that in there as a thinking tool for our folks here listening.
Thank you. Of those positions, I believe 17 are directly related to the judges, correct? Okay, so those are sort of mandatory. Yeah, there's not much we can do there. Okay, which is fine. I'm just clarifying that.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Visser.
to strongly echo Commissioner Lachiondo's concern, I have that too. With that high number and the way the economic cycles go, it's a reality that some type of recession is coming down the road. I'm not a negative naysayer, but also we have that cloud hanging over us that has not been adequately addressed in the last couple of years, is deferred maintenance. And when you snooze, you lose money, and that's what we've seen firsthand. So I'm putting a high priority on our deferred maintenance issues and keeping in my mind that reality check of economic cycles. So again, I echo strongly what Commissioner Lachiondo shared with us. Thank you.
As I see, however, now our little ball has moved, so now comes the hard part, yes.
And notice we're on the other side of the green now.
Now, I just wanted to mention too, as we're talking about foregone, the legislature tried really hard to eliminate the ability to take any foregone last session, and they're probably going to get it done this coming session. There's a really good chance that we will not have that ability, and so that amount would never, ever be added to our tax base, and we'd have a really difficult time funding our master's facility plan or taking care of our deferred maintenance. So I just feel like time is sort of the essence when it comes to foregone. If we are going to look at taking a piece of that, it'd be a good time to do it. Okay, so I think we're good with the 5 in there for now, and we can move on. We can come back and revisit that.
Sure, and we'll come back and revisit foregone later in terms of funding stream. I know you were referencing it, but I have not added any at this point.
That's
okay. I just want to make sure. All right, kind of on the same theme that you were just speaking to, let's shift gears and look at the capital improvement program. All right, speaking of deferred maintenance. Here are all of the various requests that we've received. You've had multiple presentations in terms of what's contained in the program. My intention is just kind of work down the list, but really at this point, if there's any in particular that you want to touch on, as noted, these are in priority order as presented by the Transformation Board, right? So as they've been presented to you. And so we can kind of go through, and you'll see this will significantly shift things as well because these are large dollar requests. For those who are listening that may not be familiar, the capital improvement program, as well as our extraordinary operating expenses, those are those that are over $100,000 that we ask departments to submit additional information and supporting documentation on what their request is, as well as what the ongoing cost will be to the county, so that they're more fully vetted than a smaller dollar request.
And I might mention to folks that our deferred maintenance, larger projects oftentimes are not reflected in this. They can be reflected in the operations budget, correct?
Sure, correct. Yep. Okay, so courthouse server room, the uninterrupted power supply, transformer replacement. This is the power to the servers.
You think we need power? I don't know.
Quick question, Madam Chair. Thank you. Phil, looking at this chart where that total of $9,500,780, that is in the fund number up there?
That is not.
Oh, it is not in there yet?
No. Yeah, you can see.
See, on the other, I didn't see
We're
a
gonna go this way before we can go this way.
Yeah.
figure for the 5 million in there, and then since I assumed we put it in and it did it, these were incorporated, but thank you for that reality check.
Great. And it's worth noting, you can see the color coding in the breakout kind of from, I guess, degree of urgency. So you have the important and most urgent at those top 8,
Right.
followed by, I don't think we've had, that may be a test of my memory, where we've been able to fund all CIPs just because of the size of the requests.
I think, Commissioner Visser, did you get this handout that shows actually when they go ahead and they plug it in, one-time capital? Yeah. Okay, so it looks like we're about 8 million. If you look up at the top, about 8 million, if we start plugging those in up here.
Oh, it's this, yes.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, so that's the deficit.
So, Madam Chair, if we want to look at these ones in the top section sort of holistically, I'm looking at, some of them are very specific, immediate. Some of them, well, all of them are really immediate, but some of them are tied to the master's facilities plan. So for me, I would probably take out a couple of them in here, say no to a couple of them on here, knowing that we've already plugged in on the other end, that 5 million. And for that, I would include the PSB complex expansion, driver's license, second location.
Okay, number 3.
Is that the driver's location?
Yes.
Take out or add?
To take out.
And add it to the MFP?
Well, I would say no to it right here, knowing that we've already plugged in 5 million on the other end.
So for clarity for everyone, probably the $1 million for the PSB expansion, the Dairy Gold property.
Correct.
A no.
Correct.
Because of the other funding source.
Because of the other funding source.
But you said the second driver's license location. It's the purchase of the property.
They're 2 different items.
2 different
So
things.
number
I would
3
take
and
both
number
of them
4.
out.
Oh, you took both?
Yes.
And I would go no on both of those also.
Okay.
Not because I don't think they're needed, but we have money over here. I'm looking at you, Sheriff.
Okay. Following your logic, not advocating, but following your logic, would the same be true of the coroner's piece, or we already have the money set
We already
aside?
have the money set aside for coroner.
Never mind, I had to think that through, obviously.
Yeah, so we're looking at sheriff and coroner.
And morgue cooler freezer is separate. That's for the existing building. And that's immediate. That's my understanding. I don't know if we have anybody here from coroner's office, but my understanding is that we have to do that right now before we get into some trouble.
I'll just say to that point, it's
Yeah.
probably fair to say all those in the red have been deemed a degree of urgency.
Yeah.
Hence why the transferation, and then the ranking reflects their urgency as well.
And on the coroners, the freezer expansion, that needs to be back up anyway, even with the new facility. We will need that as backup.
Yeah, now, if there's somebody from operations here, they could probably
Yeah,
verify that.
I think we
Yeah,
know we
go
have to
ahead,
do
come on
that
up.
now, so.
Yeah,
Oh, that's from coroner's office.
yeah, there we go.
Oh, good.
Roxanne.
Hi, Roxana.
I'm sorry. Phil's head was in the way. What can I say?
Well, good morning, Commissioners.
Good
I'm
morning.
Roxana with the Coroner's Office. And to your question about the urgency or immediacy of the need for the cooler expansion, it is very urgent. And to the second part of that question, that would stay there and be emergency backup services for future needs.
And we're gonna cross our fingers, we get that grant, but we cannot count on it, so.
That is very
Yeah.
true, Commissioner Lachiando.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So, Madam Chair?
Hmm,
Madam Chair?
Kathleen?
Commissioners, in light of the grant and that we have submitted an application, it is our thought in our office and asking a couple of other different people out there that if we budget the full 600,000, we would be supplanting. So my recommendation is that we only budget the 350, because if we get that grant, we already have budgeted the full
Oh, yeah,
amount.
we
And
can't
the federal
supplant.
government is
Yeah.
gonna say, you just supplanted.
Supplanted,
So
yeah.
they're not gonna be happy. So my advice is we budget 350.
Okay.
If something happens and we don't get the grant, we will
can
have the money
revisit.
somewhere else, I am pretty sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Can you make some magic happen in the Excel sheet here?
Thank you for that, Kathleen, appreciate that.
Which one should I change?
FY20 GF column, change
Okay.
that one.
Got it.
Kathleen, do we have any other requests on the CIP that have grants, potential grants coming in?
No.
It's the only one. Yeah.
That I'm aware of.
Yeah, I know, right? Darn.
So on number one, again, that is not master facilities plan. That's just existing pressing issue.
Yeah, I would say yes on that.
Somebody told me last week that generally judges like to stay cool, so I'm gonna make sure we make that happen.
They are cool, but they like to stay cool. Okay, and so we're down to 350 on the morgue, and then we're going to move the 3 and 4 to the master's facility plan funding tool, and then we're at 5 now, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Visual upgrades, this is ongoing, right? This is year
Yeah, this is
2 or 3?
Yep.
Yeah, this is the.
Year 2, I believe.
Okay, 2
Yeah,
of
so
3.
that needs to continue. We're good with that? Okay.
Good with that, yes.
And then the corners, the next one, we've started a construction fund, so do we need to do anything on there?
I'll put yes there, but we've created the fund, so, yep.
Yes.
Same with the 7, it's ongoing, it's the second or third year of the jail grounding,
Not sure which year it is.
second or third year, but it's ongoing.
It's on, they have another
Yep,
request.
yes to that,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
And then the juvenile security system upgrade,
Essential.
yeah, yeah, essential.
Okay.
Those were your most pressing, most urgent.
Now let's see where the ball is.
So Phil, I had a question about the Barber Park pathway and parking. We're using fund balance, but I'm confused by that because parks is within the 3% cap. So how does that
So
work?
it's within the 3% cap in terms of where revenue comes in, but it has its own fund balance. It's still its own fund.
It has its own
It
special
maintains
fund.
its own
Okay.
fund balance, yeah. We all share that revenue stream, but we don't all share fund. Like, once the funding's in its respective funds, we're not sharing those funds. It's merely the revenue stream that is shared.
Okay.
So they have their own fund balance that would be
Got it.
funding that project.
Okay, thank you.
And does any of that carry over to the Greenbelt repairs, maintenance?
I mean, I think it's one of those, maybe it could, probably the bigger issue with the Greenbelt, especially with the cost, is the amount of funds that are required. I think the dollar size has exceeded what their ability to do it.
Self-fund, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So let's take these one at a time.
Sure.
Courthouse security camera upgrades.
I'd rather sort of leave that one for now. Personally, I'd rather leave all of these in the yellow for now and maybe revisit them, with the exception of the Barber Park that is obviously self-funded.
Question, Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Visser.
Commissioner Lachiondo said leave it in that area. Is it in our purview, Phil, to move any of these up? Or is it just whether or not we're going to accept that amount? For instance, I have a strong commitment to fixing the Greenbelt by Expo, Idaho. I mean, we've had a mess there since Snowmageddon and the flooding and so forth, and that area gets used a lot more than the Greenbelt by Sunrock.
Right.
But also, we've had some input coming in from Scott Coburg, who's been the acting director, interim director out there, saying that there might be some funding there. So I'm a little
Yeah, I
in the
think,
gray about how we can do this. I view it as urgent and important.
I as well, and I'm right there with you. We need to get that fixed. My concern with funding this year is that we are in the final conversations with FEMA and the remapping of the flood zone. And there's conversation about having part of that be even potentially a levee and having to redo the entire path. So I hate to, dedicate a lot of
something
money.
and then have it torn down.
And have it torn down, exactly. So as much as we have the will and the want to do this, the timing is just a little bit off here.
Real challenging. Definitely recognize that it's a high liability to the county because it's not a safe section of the Greenbelt with its breakups and so forth.
Can we, I know we asked Scott this question, I don't remember Scott here, he's probably not. Can we have, get a lifeline out to Scott?
Yeah.
I think he mentioned that on the Expo Idaho Greenbelt that we could possibly do something that was more temporary versus permanent.
Yeah.
I think
an
this is,
option,
yeah, as an option. So I would like to have him come back with what that temporary fix would be until we can figure this out with FEMA and with Garden City as well. And then the Sunrock, I thought that there was a potential grant and also Sunrock chipping in, contributing as well. So if Scott could get back to us on both those amounts, on contributions to number 10, and then temporary timing on the other one, yeah.
Okay, at our next break, we'll reach out to Scott to get follow up on that.
Excellent.
No problem. And then to follow up, specific to your question, Commissioner Visser, the prioritization is merely to is assistive in nature by the Transformation Board. Don't worry about where they sit. Your question is ultimately, would you guys just kind of have that dialogue is, do you fund something or not? So you can definitely skip an item, right, and choose not to fund it because of what you feel is the priority.
That's
over that. So this purely to provide you assistance in your deliberations, not to restrict you in any way.
Great, thank you.
If my fellow commissioners are okay with it, I would say we could safely say no on the final one, on the entryway and stair replacement. I spoke with Scott in operations, and he said we could.
Number
we could wait.
14?
Yeah.
Yep, number 14.
Yeah,
We could wait on that.
I'm
So
okay with that.
that's-
Thank you.
Okay. Cool. And then do you want to I know we have the outstanding questions on the Greenbelt pieces. Is there, I think it was suggested by Commissioner Lanciando to say yes to the parking that's funded with the fund balance out of.
That makes sense to me too.
I just wanted some acknowledgement. And then to any of the others, do you want to, at this point in time, I think Commissioner Lanciando, you had suggested saying no at this point to these,
Or
and then we
just
can
leaving
revisit
them-
them based on funding.
I would say sort of leaving them blank.
Okay,
and
sure.
Which is a default no right now. But I think once we go back through some of the position requests, supplementals, we may be able to
Sure.
relook at those.
I'm just curious, on number 13, if those can be separated out. I know the CCU area is problematic. When we did our jail inspection, you could clearly see that there's some problems there, but I'm wondering if those two could be split out. Is anyone here from Sheriff's Office?
Lots of people.
Oh, come on up. I didn't see you back
Anyone
there.
from the Sheriff's Office brave enough to take the question?
Do you have a dancing video with you today? Or are you just gonna dance?
No, I'm told we're not allowed to use dancing video for
right, who told you
trademark
that?
reasons or something, but good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Chair, Commissioners.
Good, could you mind clarifying that one
I
again?
couldn't see that in the back at all, so
Okay.
now that I'm up here.
The question is
The 13.
the dormitory and CCU unit, could those two be separated or are they?
Is it one project, or could they be separated out into phases? And if so, what would be a priority?
They're all made up from the same area
Okay.
as part of that.
Okay, so we can't do one without the other.
Well, I would bring in our construction people for that question. I may ask Scott Williams to speak on that, but I think from our side, once you start getting into the jail and down into our CCU area, if we're going to be removing walls and changing that, it's probably best to do that all at the same time to reduce our security threats.
Okay, and if we were to, in the master's facility plan, fund a jail expansion, would this become obsolete or this would be, continue to be necessary?
So our CCU area in the jail is our oldest part of the jail. And as we've navigated through our master facility conversation, initially, if we were to put in our new public safety building, that's potentially where that would sit. And so we would look to remove our oldest part of the jail first as we build out. And so the answer to that is yes. There is an option that that would be part of our rebuild. But in the meantime, if our rebuild, if we're talking that we're looking 5 years down the road, it is one of those areas that is essential for us right now to be able to provide that option for our public defenders, for our judges, for our prosecutors, and our clergy, attorney visits, and all of that, which is an immediate need right now.
Okay, so knowing that we have, at least I think a couple of us on the board level, have the desire to expand the jail. As we know, we did not pass inspection this year for the first time. We have overcrowding at our jail because of the state level refusing to expand the prison, so they're holding those inmates in our Ada County Jail. We're subsidizing that cost. Not happy about that. Would love to look at having conversations with the state, the IDOC and governor's level, to see if we can't co-fund transition centers and whatnot. But even if we get there, we still will need expansion in our jail, regardless of moving to better alternative forms and transition centers. You still see an immediate need to expand the jail.
We do, and I think you'll...
Sheriff, I just want to clarify, however, this does not change our rated capacity in terms of number of inmates. It improves flow and the service with public defenders and clergy, et cetera, but it wouldn't solve any crimes, pun intended, in terms of our rated capacity for various types of inmates.
No, absolutely not. It just gives us multiple locations, multiple rooms for us to continue, so it will cut down on the wait times for all of our services coming into the jail.
I think what we're struggling with is this facility is so old and in need of major repairs that even if we do repairs to this building, trying to meet ADA standards is almost impossible. So kind of balancing that out with the addition for the new and fixing up the old, and we don't want to put a lot of money onto a facility that's only going to be with us maybe another 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, I think that's the importance of us looking at that property just to the west of us or to the other side of our jail, to give us that ability to get that property, build a small expansion, and the sooner we do that, the sooner we could add these new rooms and accommodate the same option. But again, if it's going to be many, many years, that need is immediate.
Okay. I'm hoping it won't be many, many years. Yes. Any other questions or comments on 13? Let's just keep them blank for now, you think, so we can revisit once we go through the master's facility plan a little more thoroughly.
And the same true for the courthouse security camera upgrade?
For me, yes. I'd keep it blank for now.
Okay. All right. We'll shift gears, same theme, but shift gears.
Now that we're in the yellow, Phil, I'm going to have this chocolate, so.
I need coffee.
Oh, sorry. All right. Similarly, over $100,000, these are the extraordinary operating expenses. I'll note, just as we begin, like we went through the other ones, we had referenced during this that one of the things we identified is so on number one, the payroll time and attendance replacement, the $1,750,000 currently exists in our budget. It just, the question is when the expense is going to hit. So that one should be I would say relatively easy yes, because that portion of the funding, but there is the additional $250,000 that's being requested that does require new money for that one.
Okay.
Yes.
Shouldn't do that.
This is the one that had me real nervous over the weekend, Phil.
I know, sorry.
You were nervous over this one?
Well, the number was
Wait, why did it do that?
11 million?
well, it wasn't totaling correctly, and I couldn't get us into the green no matter what I did.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So
It's
the
right.
additional request was in addition?
The dot?
Yes.
So,
Okay.
yeah, the dot, so we still need fund balance to fund this request. What we had done to rectify is not remove that this won't impact anything. We moved where the green is, so we went up from $5 million to $7.75 million,
okay.
thereby accounting for that. So that is taken into consideration in here.
Okay.
I know that doesn't look more comfortable the way it
Okay.
stands
Yeah,
on the
I just-
screen,
Okay.
but it
Already
is.
opened my chocolate. So.
Sorry.
Uh,
Right as you were starting to feel good, sorry about that. So the next piece of that is the $250,000, the request based on the RFP process so far.
Okay. I would say yes on that. We don't really have much option.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say yes.
Difficult to fund it without.
Yeah.
I'm encroaching in your space.
No worries. Okay, I'm trying to get all my appropriate documents here to remember things.
Yep.
Okay.
Next, number 2 is the sheriff's radio replacement. This is, I think, phase 2 or 3? 3? Look, there's lots of 3s behind me. It's phase 3.
Yeah, these are the Motorola?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The next 2 were the ones that were removed from, so we're gonna skip over those.
Do we need to put no in there?
Just to make us.
There's
feel
no
better.
money, but I'll make it, yeah.
Just make us feel like we're
It'll-
doing
it- Every sense of accomplishment counts,
We'll take it.
yes.
Thank you, Steve.
So the public safety building and the juvenile court services building, HVAC control upgrades, it's operations.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an ops, budget. Okay, you're gonna have to convince us of this one, Phil.
I'm happy to sit and convince you. I don't know that that's my role at the moment, but number 6 is the electronic poll books for elections.
So I had pulled this out, but was wondering, I heard you, I hear the challenge that you have, and especially as, I think we can expect next year's election, 2020, to be, if not as high, probably higher than last year. Is it your feeling that we have to, sorry, I'm gonna ask you to
Sure.
give me
I
this one.
can stand
Okay.
here and represent myself as well.
So is it your feeling we have to get this done this year in preparation for 2020? We wouldn't have time in the next budget cycle?
And what are the consequences if we do not fund it?
Both very good questions. It is my feeling that sooner is better because of the challenges. So the 2020 cycle, because it's a presidential cycle, we will start in March with the presidential preference primary, right? Which is a complicated election just because of the rules in terms of who can participate in what and who can't participate in what. Really, what's really driving this is the complexity of the election. So turnout, as I referenced in my presentation, being able to monitor and predict or be able to triage turnout issues during the day. It's one thing, we're really good, Anthony does a ton of work on this at projecting on a countywide level, we can get pretty close to what turnout is gonna be. The problem is, for operational purposes, we have to do it precinct by precinct and nail down specifically for the presidential preference primary what we think the likely turnout is of Democrats versus constitutionalists versus Republicans. And as you can imagine, in an area like Ada County, it varies greatly in each little pocket. And so that becomes really difficult. What the electronic poll books allow us to do is get instant feedback as to what's going on, as well as to cut some of our costs in terms of the paper and everything else. The other aspect of it, it's tough for me to say which cycle. So in terms of a presidential cycle, volume is what we're going to encounter, as well as the complexity of the primaries, both in March and in May. And then November will just be, record turnout most likely again. Then in the off years, so like this year, where our complexity comes in, where electronic poll books really matter, is being able to identify who's eligible to vote in a specific area. So, for example, we have city elections coming up in November, and city elections are particularly difficult because city boundaries are haphazard at times, and specifically in cities like Eagle and Meridian, where there's areas that have not been annexed over time, so there's pockets throughout the city that are not annexed. We're required to identify that you may vote, but you may not. And this gives us the tools. Right now, we do try to do it in a paper format, but the opportunity for error definitely exists. And so we're trying to tighten it up. It's just elections kind of post Bush v. Gore every year, they seem to get more and more complicated. And really last cycle was a tipping point for us where it became our highest priority in the office was to do this. So, I mean, it's tough. In my world, it's extremely high priority. But I can also sit here as the budget officer and see how you're juggling with everything. And I totally respect where it fit on the prioritization among the other competing projects.
Well, I appreciate that you gave us, I'm sorry, go ahead. I appreciate that you gave us an overview, a broad overview, versus just using the last election cycle as an example of why we need this, because it was unusual. It was sort of the perfect storm. We had more people out than ever before. And who knows if that'll continue to be a trend or if that was an anomaly. We'll find out.
Then just to add to where we're really seeing the difficulty, it's the layering. I have maps that can show you, but when in a particular election, it's not just cities, but on the city election, we may also have fire district elections. We may also have library district elections or schools. And when you start to do that within one precinct, it's very common for us to have 3 different ballot types in a single precinct. We've had up to 7 different ballot types in a single precinct. And so not only on a countywide level, but at an individual polling location, you're having to determine you get ballot A, you get ballot B, you get ballot C, and not mix them up. And we have, unfortunately, this is going back to 2013, we did have to redo an election for a cost of about $180,000 because of mistakes by poll workers in issuing ballots at one point.
So
I mean, that's where we pay the price, really.
Margin of error.
Is that when we make a mistake, they're expensive.
Okay. Did you have a question?
Sure. That point is well taken, and then earlier, as you said, there'd be savings of time and materials, i.e. paper, et cetera. Do you have any projection of possible payback, savings per year?
Commissioner, we've calculated that into our CIP request. It doesn't offset. The new technology certainly, there's never going to be a return on investment in terms of cost, but where the return is on accuracy, right, and being able to deal with it. But we do get offsets that was built into our projection. So our budget would decrease on use of temps and paper, but the cost of the computer certainly is more than paper poll books cost us.
But the big savings is not having to do an expensive recount, right?
Recount, or just having to do an election over. And I can tell you, it was really unfortunate in the city of Eagle. It was when the city of Eagle looked to purchase City Hall, right? So they were going out for bond to purchase City Hall. There was another election happening at the same time. Our poll workers for the first half hour of the day were issuing the opposite ballots to respective people. They're basically taking the A and giving it to the Bs and vice versa. We caught it early and fixed it, but the bond failed by 25 votes. And we were able to show that we had issued more than 25 ballots in error. And there's no remedy at that point. The only thing to remedy is to redo it.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
I'd say yes to put it in here for now.
Okay.
We might have to revisit, but it's
Okay.
Video testimony upgrades. This is it's an IT request, but I think it's tied closely, obviously, with the courts.
Mm-hmm. And that will definitely save money and increase security, from my understanding. Anyone here that can speak to this one? Okay, I would say yes. I know that the more we can provide testimony via video, the better. Yeah, but I'd like to know exactly what upgrade this is.
Good morning. This doesn't necessarily, it's replacing old units. Not all of the courtrooms, as you know, have video in them. We only have a handful. And so to cover the gap of needed video testimony, they have a cart. It's literally a TV and camera set up on wheels. And this replaces the old one. It's probably the oldest video system the county has at this point. And so it allows it to be mobile, so you can do video in more courtrooms. And then, of course, it adds another opportunity if you had them all working at once. So if in the line of thinking, as far as your question there, Commissioner Visser or Commissioner Kenyon, the security aspect of it, this would have a bigger impact on the ease of use of video since it's the only mobile one that we have. And like I said, it's the oldest one at this point.
It's the only mobile?
It's the only mobile video platform that we have. So I should say, I take it back. The prosecutor's office owns their own that they use for some simulcast streaming they use where certain witnesses or whatever can't be in the courtroom. This one is specifically in support of the TCA and the court side of this. So they can basically put video court where they need to when they can't access a video courtroom.
And that's based on bids that you've had in the past, or?
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's getting awfully orange.
It is. Okay, the final one here is the redigitization of historic records. This is the project in our office, the multi-phases, and something to point out because you can see the money here. There's already saved up is $500,000, right, in dedicated funding through funds came through revenues. The request is one, permission to use that. So there's almost 2 votes here at least. One, permission to use the $500,000 that's been saved up because it still requires your approval to do so. And then there's also a request from the general fund of $396,000 on top of that. And we broke this out intentionally so that you could do all, none, or that in between.
Is the 533 in the general fund?
It is in the general fund, but it came from recording revenues, is what it's paid for. So there's some dedicated recording revenues that have been saved up to be able to do that.
In question, please?
Mm-hmm, sure.
Yeah, Phil. So if we do a yes on this, will the, what is it here, 396,553 be the only amount added, or do we still have to add in that 533 that you set aside?
So if you do a yes now, I mean, there's 2 yeses here, and it doesn't capture it quite well. One is approval to use that savings that exists. But then there's also the yes for the additional funding. I believe on terms of the bar, it will just be the 396. Is it?
You'll still need to use fund balance, so we'll move it over.
Okay.
So we would be approving.
Is that the 500,000 is built in?
It's set aside already.
That's
Okay.
approved use of
Okay.
acceptable use.
Chair, Phil, just a question, going back to the various fund balances. So this is not its own special fund, or it is?
This is not its own special fund. This is general fund department, but there's a statutory authority that says the revenue that comes in, even though this is general fund operated function, there's a portion of the revenue that's been dedicated to investment in technology for recorded documents. So we've kept track of.
We have to use those funds for those
that
purposes.
purpose. Yeah,
Okay.
not this specific project, but
Right.
projects like this.
Got it.
Yes.
Another question, please?
Sure.
Yeah, so this one starts off with digitation instead of just digitation.
Yeah.
Could you explain that a little bit, please?
Yeah, this is phase. I don't want to compare this to projects we just talked about. This is phases 2 and 3 of a 3-phase process. Mind you, phase 1 happened back in 2010 or 2011. So Phase 1 was digitizing the microfilm, and I presented on this. Right now what it is it's a digital image that, imagine a roll of microfilm that's one giant picture. What this will do is then now break it up, index it, enhance the images so that you can easily access the information that's in key.
Still on microfilm, or will it go?
It is digital now. It's already digital, but it's a digital version of microfilm, where this will actually make it usable so that it can go into our Helion recording system.
Okay, thank you.
So if
And
we-
I'll recognize too, acknowledge this is the lowest of these priorities.
So, again, if we were to say yes, would it combine those two, or what, what amount would come over there?
And so up top, yes, it is going to combine them. Built into our calculations up top is the 500,000 as an anticipated use of fund balance. So kind of depending on how you want to do it.
Okay.
Whereas it is not built in the $396,000.
So, Madam Chair, Commissioners, I would propose to say yes to the 533, but leave the 396 blank at this time.
Okay,
If you can do that, can you do that?
I can do that. Change general fund to 0.
930.
I would agree if you can do that.
Click yes, and then change the 930 to 533.
And is this a project that that needs to continue over how many years? It's ongoing? Give me
Move the top.
give me the flavor of what this looks like.
Sorry.
Is this a project that we need to do every year over a certain amount of years? Is it ongoing? Is it 3 years? I mean, give us an idea of what the term is.
Thankfully, no. Once this project is complete, it's complete.
And this is the third year, final?
It's not a third year. It's a multi-phase project. We did the first phase back in 2011, and then we've just gone without completing that portion of the project up until this request.
So this would finish it?
The total, the $900,000 would finish it. But what we can do here is use as I think is intended, we still can work on it in parts and pieces, where we'll use the $500,000 to get as much as we can accomplished. And then in a future year, we can make a following request to complete it further. So that is a viable option.
How much are you accruing these recording fees? So how long would it take you to accrue the fees to finish it up?
I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
I don't have the answer.
I really would like a better picture of this. I'm confused as to the dedicated funds, what it could be used for if it's not used for this. If this is a project, for example, that's going to cost us 1.2 million or 3 million total, could we chunk it up over 5 years and put in, 200, so we're not getting hit with a big chunk all at once and still get the job done. So I'd like to know. I'd like to say no for now, and have you come back and let us know what the dedicated funds. You said this was saved up, but it could be used for what other projects?
It's for technology and recording.
So any technology.
In recording, yeah.
I would like to say no for now and come back, and you guys may not agree, but I'd like to hear a longer term plan. Instead of waiting till 2011 and here we are in 2019 and here's a big chunk of change, this is something that we could just, I think, fund easily over the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I'll have to look into what the cost impact will be, trying to break it up over time in terms of the services, right? We contract out to be able to get this work done, and so there's most likely an upfront cost that you could end up repeating, but I can follow up with some of those answers.
Would you mind coming back?
That's
Okay.
totally fine.
Is that okay with you?
So not go with the part, breaking it down into 2 parts, saying no.
I'd just say no for now, so
We could still do that
we
later
can
on
just
in our
come-
deliberations.
and come back.
Okay, let's come back then.
And come back knowing more.
And I'll mention, built into our calculations up top is that fund balance of the 500,000. I'll put no for right now. We can revisit it, but it is a consideration in terms of where we finish in the end.
Well, when you say built in, what does that mean?
So we have certain elements that we anticipate using fund balance because they have either a dedicated source. That's when I say we can use up to $7.75 million in fund balance. A portion of that is that's fund balance that isn't allocated, but as you recall, this morning, I showed $17 million of fund balance being used. We're taking into consideration. So a good example is the coroner's. We have the $1.25 million set aside for the coroner's office. We took that into consideration when we were setting up your targets as to where you need to be, right? This would be similar. We didn't take the entire project because we knew some of it was new funding. Right? That there's no reason it should be, but we did take into consideration that there was already revenue there was already savings that existed that could be used. So when we were setting up your targets, and we did that for more than just this project. We did that for other ones as well, just like payroll as well.
So does when you said no on this, is the 533, 447, is that reflected or not reflected now in the new
It's all been
amount?
removed. Right now, it's zero. Yeah, which I think was what your intention
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
Yep.
so we can come back.
Yep, it's all zero.
Okay.
Okay. The last one on this page is the jail kitchen refrigeration replacement. You can see where it's not in the higher priorities, but I think you guys understand the request.
I'm going to go ahead and say no to this one at this time. Understand the need, but my understanding from Scott is that we can keep that fridge kicking for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I would say no also, given that.
And would like to just take this moment to give Scott and his crew a shout out for keeping all of our stuff running smoothly as much as they can, given our financial constraints.
All right, we have worked through all of our bigger items. Madam Chair, I think at this point, so we're scheduled to go till 1, which is fine. If you want a break between now and 1, this might be the best appropriate place to do that. If you want to push forward, we can do that. I'm going to defer to you guys.
Yeah, take a little break.
10-minute break?
Sounds great.
Okay, 10-minute break. Thank you, Phil. Okay, we are back into our budget deliberations. Everyone's awfully excited out there. I don't know if that's good or what. All right, Phil.
Because this is so much fun, Madam
That's
Chair.
right, yes.
All right, so after our break, you guys can see where we stand. Obviously, one of the significant drivers in terms of that is we made those big decisions, both on the personnel countywide as well as the master facility plan. That's what's really driving it in that direction. Now we're going to shift kind of on a smaller level is we did the supplemental request. This is the operating budget that we're talking about right now. So we did the supplemental request for those self-funded departments, but now ing into the general fund and those that are supported in the 3% cap. We will begin going through and we start with so these supplementals are all of the requests above and beyond the allocation that we gave. So I want to make that important distinction here. And that'll be different than on personnel. We will visit some of the personnel decisions that are within that allocation. But on supplementals, it's just those requests above and beyond. And so we're starting off with the sheriff's office. You can see the list from the sheriff's office, and we just want to go through and see what you guys recommend regarding those. So the first off is the training facility lease. Well, take your time if you need to grab your paper. Sorry, I'll wait for you. My apologies.
So, Madam Chair, Phil, if I may kind of take these all in a lump.
Yep.
I'd be inclined to support all of these with a caveat that we might do a placeholder under new position items when we get to the new position requests.
Sure, and on to that caveat, on any of the new positions, we've tied and tracked. So if you don't approve a position, we will remove the
It's tied
related.
together.
Are they tied together in here? They are tied together in here as a calculation. Yeah.
This is not a position, though. This is a facility lease.
These are all operational expenses. There are
I was just
no
taking
new
them all
positions here. She was referencing number 9. Sorry, she's Commissioner Laciando skipped ahead, which is because she was looking at them in bulk. Number 9 is tied to new positions. To your question, yes, number 1 on there is the lease for the training facility.
And my understanding is that donation was at around a $500,000 value to us on that training center.
Something along those,
I think it was about 500,000, and that's the annual lease amount that is, I think, saving us substantial money because it'll generate revenues as well, is my understanding. So I would say yes to that.
Yes, it does also generate.
It will.
Okay, yes.
Okay. And then we have the
What's this?
technology.
What is that?
Someone want to give us a refresher on technology?
Is that under IT or what?
That's what I was thinking, why not?
Where is
Here,
it?
let's see. I should be able to. Do you want to take it?
Oh, here it
Go
is. I
for
see it in your presentation. So this is the maintenance, TASER maintenance, telestaff, software systems, system upgrade and enhancements. Gosh, why is it so expensive, Steve?
Technology, what is it listed on?
It's under,
Uh,
it's in the sheriff's.
Yeah, it'll be if,
It's in the sheriff's or it's in the technology?
It was in the sheriff's presentation.
these will, yeah, in your binders, the reference point will always, so you see here on the left where it says sheriff.
Okay.
It will, for all of the ones that we look at. So if you go to your sheriff in the binders, and then there should be a dedicated page, these should be in supplemental number order.
Yep.
So right after that cover, that first sheet, you should be able to find this, each of these respective supplementals and their supporting documentation.
Yeah. There's- It's also in the, was it also in the PowerPoint, this one?
Yeah.
It was in the PowerPoint?
It was in the PowerPoint. It's right here
Equipment enhancements.
on page 17. So I don't know if this is a question for Steve or the sheriff, but this is a, almost $1 million worth of technology. Some of these are, looks like just, routine maintenance that we have to take on. Is there any wiggle room in here? Talk to me about what flexibility we have in this line item.
Hello again. Chair and Commissioner, the way that we're doing the budgets these days, where these are called out separately in this fashion, meaning with these large supplementals, a lot of these have been items that were purchased prior, where maybe in not all cases, but in some cases, where a project was budgeted for and asked for in a previous year's budget, it was given maybe money to purchase it. We'll see this with our payroll system next year when it comes online. We've got a large amount of money to bring it online. And then next year, it's now a new operational expense. It's now a supplemental. So some of these things are in that realm where we're bringing on systems that now we need to pay for operationally. Some of them, that's where your general system maintenance line is right there. Some of these are increased usage or a larger number of licenses need to be purchased. You see that the TASER contract is changing a little bit. They're having to increase that. Telestaff is a system they're looking for. It's an operational expense. It is a subscription, meaning it's almost on a monthly. There's nothing really capital-wise to purchase. That is the scheduling they're going to use currently right now. I believe effectively they schedule with paper or Excel spreadsheets. Some of the camera replacements, just going down the line of what was in the presentation, when they upgraded the jail system 2 years ago, I believe it began, they kept the cameras that they could continue to use. Those are now aging out, and so it's continuing that project. Those are now the worst cameras that they have. And then there's a couple different software programs that they're bringing online there. They're new software systems, there's 3 of them. And then upgrades and enhancements, the way that, like I said, almost from a point of trying to be transparent, to call these numbers out, as you have these large systems that operate so much of the business for this particular agency, we have to not only maintain them separately to keep them so that you can see what they cost us, but also we want to make sure we're budgeting for any sort of enhancement we want to do with them next year. So that we have that money available when we want to do some change to it, that sort of thing. We know we are constantly evolving our software platforms, trying to make folks more efficient, or maybe new options have come along. At least one of these enhancements has something to do with an interface built between Odyssey and TriTech, a new one. If we don't budget for it now, we won't be able to pull that off next year.
So is this the last bullet, the systems upgrade enhancements, that's a records management system?
Yes.
And will that reduce FTE hours in any way?
Well, I know it'll have an impact. It'll certainly reduce the risk that they have with, I believe they're inputting in several different systems. I'm not sure if the sheriff has specific FTE hour counts on that, and maybe I should.
I think we asked
throw
last
that
time
out
for a
there.
return on investment. When we talked about this, I still would like to see a return on investment on this, so we know if there's, less risk, if it's.
For sure, it's
reducing
less
FTE.
risk. When these systems are talking to themselves, meaning the data is being pushed and pulled between these systems, automatically there's less risk, you have less human involvement. I don't know if that means you automatically get to reduce headcount or not. I suppose we can look into that.
This is where it gets really gray for me, because I'm not an IT expert. And it's really difficult. I don't even know what most of the words mean. Can someone come up from the Sheriff's Department and speak to us again about the importance of these? And if you were to prioritize, if we couldn't fund all of it, what would be priority and why?
Well, I'll stand right alongside the IT expert. And so that's one of the beautiful things that have benefited not only Sheriff's Office, but the county by allowing the Sheriff's Office to partner with our IT so that we are managing this across the county and across all of our platforms instead of siloing like we used to. And so when we start navigating down through this, I also am not an IT expert. However, I can speak to the fact that when we talk about reducing the risk in needing these record management systems, one of the things that we're really working on to avoid is erroneous releases and ensuring that the wrong person does not get released from jail, navigating through our court system with Phil and his crew to make sure that all of the appropriate paperwork, that a lot of it has been paper, gets back to the jail, gets back to our records, gets back to our courts and judges and prosecutors so that we are all talking on the same systems. Which at the end of the day, reduce risk. If you think you don't have to go back too far in time when we've sat in front of the county commissioners to talk about paying out money for us either keeping somebody in jail for too long, not getting the appropriate paperwork to the right place, and these upgrades and enhancements will do that for us.
Madam Chair, Sheriff, so on here is EMR, electronic medical records, I presume for the health center. This is ongoing new software. Are we looking at Epic, which, that seems really small in terms of what we're bringing on, and I'm sorry I didn't get to this question earlier, but what are we looking at there?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Laciano, that is a separate specialized medical software platform. It's not Epic or anything like that. Core EMR is a program that they've had for some time and they're upgrading it. And it's as far as I know, the medical unit at the jail is the only place in the county where it's used. Similar to like what you would probably experience when you go to your own doctor and they track your medical records and it tracks the dosages of the medicines and the electronic medical file of their patients effectively.
No, I understand that. I think what I'm most interested in is the opportunity. St. Al's is now joining St. Luke's in using Epic. So we now actually have our two health systems using the same electronic medical records, which is going to allow for data sharing in between the two of them. Knowing that we have many patients who come through the ER, come see us at the Indigent Fund, hang out with you in the jail, it would be just interesting for us to be able to de-identify those patients and kind of track them. This is an aside, so I don't know that that's where we're going to get to yet, but I'm interested in it.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Visser.
I agree with that 100%. The integration of the two systems with St. Al's and St. Luke's is great. I experienced that in the last couple of weeks when I had to go in and out of different doctors and they could pull my file up just like that. I would like to see a jail EMR system that also integrated with St. Al's, St. Luke's, whatever those systems are. Is that possible?
Probably for a hefty price.
I was just going to say, for large amounts of money, probably anything's possible. But in all seriousness, it's a fair question. I don't know how the HIPAA rules work based on the legality of keeping their records safe and those being hospital systems, and we're a county, no offense to our jail medical folks. That's all something that would have to be explored.
Yeah, it's something for the off-season, I think we can look at, because we're already doing it in a less effective way where we are pulling data from the criminal justice system indigent for New Path, for example. That's how we're comparing things. But if we were able to do it in real time, it would be a lot easier. As an aside, but Epic is very expensive.
And I saw your request come through to have a conversation to start to pull together an IT Technology Advisory Committee, which I think is really smart, as this board wants to be more strategic and holistic and comprehensive in its approach with all the different departments that are involved. So knowing that that's the path that we're moving, and we want to fund technology, but we want to be very thoughtful and purposeful about it and work towards that more comprehensive collaborative approach, that this committee will give us a strategic plan to do that. Knowing that that's the direction, are there things in here that we could possibly not fund this year? And what would those be and why?
Well, it's very specialized, Chair. In just looking at this, I'm not sure if we're looking at the same thing. This is where it gets confusing, but I'm looking at the supplemental that was filled out and submitted. It's number 2 from the Sheriff's Office, titled Technology. And in there, it's got a breakdown of all the different things that make up the supplemental. And if you look at the second page, again, assuming you can see the same thing I am, it talks about interfacing between disparate systems even off of our network, and specifically Odyssey. This is where we're sharing data with the state directly through the sheriff's software systems. In the example that Commissioner Laciano just brought up regarding the healthcare folks, we would need that sort of interface, even if whether we had Epic or not. Those things are a perfect example of us doing work with others. But unfortunately, the jail record system and the records management system that the police use, that the county has, they're the only folks that use that. So the only place that sort of information is going to be interfaced will be with these software suites and with Odyssey, as that's the state system. Other than that, we're looking at additional, increases of storage due to usage of system. Looking out here, maintenance, as I said. There's really nothing in here, Chair, that I could really recommend coming out or trying to do with others. The Sheriff's Office we have a bit of that across the county where everybody does their own work. It's very, very specialized. Nobody's more specialized than the Sheriff's Office. So unusual.
Thanks for answering that question.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Phil, the one-time 171.5, what is that? So you have the budgeted amount of 853,891. And then what's the one-time of 171.5?
Not sure where that actually comes in. I see it listed on here. There's maintenance.
Probably the original purchase, maybe?
Yeah, and it's not. I don't see it broken out here, unfortunately.
So what would we be approving?
So for the sake of today, you're approving all of it. For FY20, all of that money is needed.
The 853,891 plus the 171.5?
No, the one time is built in, right, Anthony?
It's broken down on if you have the third page of the supplemental, I'm sorry, I didn't have it's not marked at the top of this little spreadsheet. If you're looking at this, there's a column of yeses. Those are one-time costs. So there's additional access points for the jail, increasing the storage capability for the jail. It's matching some rules of the state regarding retention. There's jail video. Setups for that EMR that I believe Commissioner Laciano was asking about. One-time licensing for Blue Team, which is another software platform that they're using, I believe has to do with use of force reports. I could be wrong. And then Laserfish licensing. That's truing up how much licensing they have. So that's why it's considered a one-time they're buying up.
Okay, so, and maybe this is a question for Phil, but when we were presented this in our budget presentations, we had the 853,891. So we understand what that's for. What I don't understand is where's the 171.5?
That 171.5 is within the 854. So you're only,
Within it.
yeah, it's within it, just like you're seeing on that sheet that Steve just walked
Okay,
through.
so
It's just breaking out, showing you that a portion of that total is one-time money, and then the rest is ongoing.
And the rest is ongoing. Okay, got it. Questions? So the ongoing part would be, yeah, six. Under 800,000 a year. Well, take out the 171.
700. Correct.
682.
682 ongoing. Okay.
Okay.
Ready? I'm gonna say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, I'll be here. See you soon.
Carry on. Jail food increase, no more food.
I feel like
Chocolate.
we probably need to feed people, so I'm gonna say yes to that.
I think I heard 2 yeses for food.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's the lunch hour.
Yeah.
All right.
Those tacos I saw out there the other day looked pretty good.
Property and evidence and gun storage.
I'm looking at my note
Yes.
here.
I have 2 yeses on that,
Yeah,
so.
I'm good with the matching grant funds.
This is the high-density shelving on the property evidence and gun storage. Current storage is 25 years old. Is that what the notes I have? Okay, thank you. I was paying attention.
Are you okay with the matching grant?
Yes, I am, thank you.
Cumatic. This is the,
Diana, you okay with
Yes.
the matching grant?
Yes.
Thematic is,
Cumatic is the take a number driver's license.
Yes.
oh yeah, I remember the upgrade, yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Contract for psychiatric services, the increase on that contract.
I think we have to.
Yep. Yes, pharmacy.
Pharmacy costs. I think a lot of these you're seeing are
Opioid,
increases
the
on
other side,
existing
yeah.
services. So this is where it's tied together. The last 2 items are the operating expenses related to the new positions that the sheriff has requested. I'm going to make a distinction why there's 2 lines here right now. So the first one where it says new position items, that's all the stuff related to the new positions that he requested. And then during the during the presentations, if you recall, we added 2 additional sheriff's deputies into this related to courthouse security.
Yep.
And that's why you see a separation of those 2. It's
Okay.
only because of the timing. Otherwise, they'd probably all be lumped together, but it's because of timing that they came in.
So, and remind me, when we get to the new positions within the other section, those are tied together. So
Yeah.
if we say no to something, it somehow pulls it out. We're not gonna,
I'm the mechanic. So
Okay.
should we say yes at this point? Or should we leave it alone?
It's assumed in.
Okay.
So, yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Say yes to leave it
Yeah, my
in.
recommendation is
Yeah.
say yes now, but yes, they're tied in, and we'll make sure that, we can even double check it when we first do
Dynamic
it.
number that could shift when we look at position by position and don't approve certain ones. It
Yeah, for any position that's not approved, we
Yeah.
will adjust by that amount.
changes,
Yep.
adjust us.
Bill,
Yes.
just for, since I'm having heart palpitations over how orange this is at this point,
Don't pass that on us.
okay, could you go over to the countywide section?
Yep.
And let's just pull out, not that I want to, but pull out the lump sum and let's just see where that looks like. I want to see where we sit on the whole.
Specifically the master's facility plan?
I just want to look at it. We'll
Yep,
put it
I can
back
put it
in,
right
but-
back in, yep.
Okay. So, we're still not in the green even with that.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
And
8 million.
by a decent amount, by
8
almost
million.
$700,000+.
Okay. All right.
I'll put it back in?
Yes.
Yep.
Hopefully your heart got a little bit of rest in that 3-second pause. Okay. All right, ready to shift? Next up is the treasurer's office. This is the requested funding to hire an investment advisor.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yep.
I think we're in the budget dust section, if Assessor McQuaid is.
They put themselves together.
Uh-huh. It's
So,
special, though. Yes.
yeah, next up, that's it for the treasurer's office. Next is the assessor's office.
Yes.
Yes.
Budget dust seems to go faster. All right, prosecutor's office, if you want to refer back to your notes.
And these are for the new judges, for the most part.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think we have a choice
Looks
here.
all these are tied to positions that
Yeah.
they're requesting.
I would say yes.
What is six sweep though, Phil?
Six sweep is, I think this is related to personnel changes.
It was in our budget presentations on
She
every one of
needs
them.
to buy out.
It's a buyout of,
Okay,
so
yeah.
anything
Yep.
over 240 hours of your sick for people, if they have anything over 240 hours, is swept at 40%, and it's put into a post-employment health plan for those individuals. This is the amount that they can't fund within their flat budget that they're asking for additional money for.
Yeah, that they're anticipating
They're
based on.
anticipating
I could
it.
tell you what the six sweep was, but
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
specific
Oh,
reason this
sorry.
is highlighted. No, you're fine, you're fine. It got to where we needed to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I can explain a little bit more on that.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, Jen.
Just to be consistent with what I had said during my presentation. Normally, this would have been funded in my flat budget, but because we didn't have the number before, because it takes a certain amount of time to be calculated by the time we had to file our flat budget, I didn't have the number, so we were asked to put it in as a supplement, so that, just to make it consistent with what I had mentioned. And then also wanted to clarify on the new positions, they all are related to the new judges except for my PIO, is the
Right.
number 8. Number seven, yeah, thank you.
So is that
Thank you, Jen.
part-time? Is number 7 part-time then because of that?
Thank you, Jan.
It's-
No, it would be full-time. I have someone currently, Madam Chair,
Oh,
Commissioner Visser, I have someone currently that's in addition to their duties doing that, so this would be a full-time to take it over completely.
got it, thank you.
Thank you.
And on these positions, we'll revisit the positions when we go through the PBS stuff. Right, this is, yep.
Okay.
All right, shifting to operations.
Okay.
If some of their additional operating expenses. First up, not insignificant, is the Myrtle Street Garage. This is the anticipated expenses that they're gonna have when the new parking garage is completed, in terms of their ability to maintain and operate that space.
Scott, I think I asked this during budget presentations. Will you remind me? We believe this is going to be offset by parking revenues.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Yes, we're looking at the amount of parking spaces that we have that are going to be available and what they're going to get billed at. I forgot to bring that information with me. I apologize for that. I will get that to you as soon as possible. The other thing with this is that the $221,000 was for the entire year. And what we're really looking at is probably about 4 months of that. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware that in the following year, it's going to go back to the full amount. So we are asking for about 4 months is where we think we're going to be with the garage coming online.
So 221 is only 4 months, or 221 is the
No.
entire year?
That's the entire year of funding.
Okay,
And we were asking for $73,667 over the 4 months of that amount. So that can get backed out of that. That's what we're
Okay.
looking at. We think we're going to be at with the garage.
so why don't we, my recommendation or question would be, could we give you a little buffer, put you in at 90, and in case they miraculously complete construction early?
Yes.
Okay, and then we save ourselves a little bit of
Oh, yeah.
room?
No, and that was my intent. I guess I
Okay.
didn't explain myself that well.
No, I appreciate that.
So,
I'll go ahead and change that to 90.
Does that sound
Yeah. I'm good with that.
appropriate?
Yeah.
Rational.
Carpet project.
Make sure I got that right.
And is this ongoing? Yeah, this is ongoing, yeah.
The carpet we're standing on right here.
Right.
They've already started a number of places and want to put more carpet like this down.
Yes. I think it's lovely.
Thank you.
Is that a yes to carpet?
Lovely. So Scott, ongoing for an additional 2 years, so we can expect 150.
Yes, that's what we'd like to do, is to just move it out through multiple years.
Yeah.
A lot of the carpet in the large areas, we're trying to get a lot of it done. It's coming apart. We need to get moving on getting it changed out. So I'm hoping we can get it budgeted out for 3 years. And
Okay.
that'll get us a large chunk of that building done.
I appreciate the planning you've been doing to get this done year by year. Thank you.
I'm good with carpet.
Yes.
These next two are, again, costs related to the new employees. Well, I think with the pattern we've already done, we'll go ahead and put these in as yes right now.
And then we can,
Revisiting
yeah,
when we do the
revisit.
new employees. Obviously, there's a little bit more to operations because they have vehicles.
And the same with the vehicles.
Yep, same.
Okay, perfect. All right.
All right.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you very
You are
much.
Steve.
Okay.
Okay.
Next up, information technology.
So we had video testimony upgrades within CIP. So this is a tie to that. Is that correct?
They related?
Yeah, this is the, told you I'd be back. Good morning again, or afternoon at this point. Yes, that is that hardware.
So it looks like we may have this duplicated.
Did you
Is that
duplicate
correct?
it?
Got it, we better confirm
It's
that.
number 7 on EOE.
Yeah, same dollar amount, same.
Yeah, I think this is the same thing.
So it looks like it got submitted as
Did
supplemental.
we just find
and
some
as-
money?
We did.
Yay!
You're standing here as my witness.
Yes,
Okay.
Feeling so much better.
Still orange.
still orange.
Sorry.
Anthony.
Thank you, though.
Can I go
The dollar
Thank you
counts.
for that.
You might as well sit there for a second.
Yeah, just stay right here.
Stay close.
Okay, what's
Okay.
the rollover?
Operational expand and replace rollover. So you shouldn't have sat down.
You should have sat down. I'll just stand. I'll
Steve,
crowd
you
out.
didn't have a PowerPoint on these, did you?
Well, they didn't go
presented?
too deeply into detail. I didn't want to.
But you didn't, because I have PowerPoints with most of these with my notes, but just remind me, you did not have one.
No, but this is broken out now. So this is I talked about them a little bit, where our growth of our storage is going as we continue to save more and more stuff. Remember, I threw a couple graphs up there showing how growth is, I don't want to say out of control, we just need to save a lot of digital information. This is where we're budgeting for that separately, for the growth for next year, so we can have space to expand there. And then same thing with as we add more servers, that sort of thing, power to our servers. It's all, it gets down to CPU power, adding CPU, adding RAM, and adding storage.
So I assume you've done an analysis with using cloud and.
And we do
versus-
use cloud too.
So that's what I would like to see, is what's the analysis, why server versus cloud?
So the
I
systems
don't know
that
if I
we're,
need it right now, but I just feel like we're looking at a $370,000 price tag, and I don't feel like I have any information here in front of me to compare.
well, it depends on the system. Most of the new systems we've brought in have been cloud-based, but so much of this is the items that we have operating here locally. All of our enterprise financials run within servers. A good deal of the software we've had for quite a good period of time run locally, not in the cloud. So it'd be, if you could wave a magic wand and say, great, put it in the cloud, we still have to store data. We still save all of our digital data, our emails and all of that, still gets stored locally. at this time. That could move out in the cloud, but what that will then do is shift these dollar amounts from this line item to a different line item, say for subscriptions to a service like Office 365, which is a big one. We'll eventually put all of our email secured out there. It won't be on our servers anymore. It'll feel like it is, but then we're paying this large subscription fee to Microsoft effectively to manage that storage space. We won't have to worry about adding infrastructure to store that information, but then we pay for it in other ways. So cloud is a great idea. It's an easy way to get things quick, but the costs shift. You don't have to buy a server for it anymore, but you're going to pay more on a subscriber on a monthly basis, if you will, for that subscription.
And it is more prone to hacking as well.
You definitely have to be a lot more careful with it. We put some things in place, not going too deep here, but yes, that's part of the consideration is what do you put out there, meaning not in our infrastructure. At this point in time, we don't have any PII like of employees, that sort of thing necessarily out there. But when we jump to an HRIS system, which is another one you keep hearing about, that will be in the cloud. So that's going to have all different types of security ramifications that are going to go against that. And of course, that required of this company that we'll be ultimately purchasing from.
What's the rollover?
Some of it, we push year to year based on how much we've been able to complete or when we need it. We also don't just, so October 1st doesn't roll around and we go buy a bunch of hard drives and a bunch of memory and that sort of thing. So some of the money we will, that's been allocated for, we don't get it built, completed in time for the next budget. So I guess to keep things fair, we mark it as a rollover. And so some of this is part of that where if we're not sure we'll get to it by the end of this year and we have not marked it as something we're going to do in the following budget, those dollars will evaporate, I believe is how that works. I don't want to get in the habit of buying something the second we get the budget for it and then sitting on it. I want to pull the trigger when we need to, but sometimes we have to therefore budget in multiple years. Again, the payroll system is the same thing. We'll be probably purchasing it this year, but we better be budgeting for the whole thing for next year just in case we get a delay or we'll be in trouble.
Questions?
So our options are basically one. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think this board that we keep talking about, this group that's going to talk, it's going to allow us as a county, that little group of individuals we can get together to talk about different ways that we can do budgeting. Right now, what ends up in the cloud is when we're looking at a system that a particular department or office wants, and then that office or department sort of makes that decision, but there's no general conversation of how we should be doing this business together. This will lead to that. And we can talk about even what should we be saving? Why does our storage increase?
Yeah. Well, we really need
Need that platform.
Yeah.
It's a huge piece.
Okay. All right, where are we at with this one?
I think we were still on number 2.
Well, and I would, you can back me up if I am getting over my skis here, but I would say we're kind of in the same place on many of these. These are mostly have-tos, not get-tos.
Yep.
With the question, of course, being the supplemental for FTEs. So I would plug them in at this point.
Plug them in at this point?
Right.
Yeah, okay, let's plug them all in.
Okay.
Is Meg here? From Development Services? No, just in case we need her.
Is now a good time to break, I wonder? I know I have to get to another meeting.
Yeah, it's 10 to 1. What do we have? How much do we have for Development Services?
It's pretty significant.
Yeah, it is.
You have
that's-
you have
that's-
the
that
last
was-
item, which will.
Yeah, let's go ahead and break, and then let's make sure that Meg, Metro. Okay, we'll convene, we'll break for lunch.
We're breaking for the day.
Oh, for
We
the
will
day.
reconvene tomorrow.
We'll convene tomorrow.
I'm trying to remember what time. At 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon?
Correct.
Okay. Are we taking any public testimony, any of the rest of the week? That was it?
Nope, that was it. We will receive comments through tomorrow in terms of the online comments. So anybody who still has outstanding comments, we'll be compiling all of those, but through tomorrow.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Really
Thank you all.
helpful being here.
Do you wanna shoot an email to Megan?
One, yeah.